सर्व मान्यवरांना नमस्कार. I wish to extend a very warm welcome to all of you distinguished participants and experts to this roundtable on district level water security, demand management and water circularity for Pune. This has been organized by Pune International Center in collaboration with Pune Knowledge Cluster and Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics. We've had a number of collaborations and joint events with Gokhale Institute and with PKC from time to time. One memorable online webinar was with Professor Ajit Kembavi and his team when PKC was leading the COVID-19 Zero Survey for Pune city during the pandemic. Today's discussion on better water management for Pune district is very important and timely, and this initiative could actually emerge as a model for other cities and other districts to follow. Fortunately, Pune, because of its saucer-shaped topography and multiple dams, has had ample water supply. However, equitable water distribution in various areas of this emerging megacity and reduction in water wastage are areas of concern. Given the continuing trend towards rapid urbanization, these concerns need to be addressed sooner than later, and we are grateful to all of you and to Shri Dinanath Kholkar, convener of Pune's PIC's Science, Technology and National Innovation Ecosystem Research Vertical, for taking up this initiative. PIC, as all of you know, is led by Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar as President and Dr. Vijay Kelkar as Vice President. And the SciTech Innovation Research Vertical is one of the 5 areas in which PIC works. The other 4 being national security, social innovation, energy, environment and climate change, and urbanization and economic reforms. There is year-round activity happening at the PIC under all these research verticals, in addition to national and international research conferences, book discussions, conversations, and not to forget events on arts and culture. PIC places a lot of emphasis on engagement with the youth, and in all its activities we have student interns and young researchers. So this policy research think tank revolves around the core liberal values enshrined in the Indian Constitution and the UN Charter. With this, I would like to welcome all of you once again and would now like to hand over the floor to Shri Kholkar.
Thank you, Abhay, and welcome to all of you. Thank you for making the time to join this roundtable. So let me just give a quick context setting on this particular roundtable and what we do under the vertical of science, technology and the innovation ecosystem. So the way these verticals are organized, we need to do 2 policy papers per year in the financial year, and 1 conference or 2 roundtables. That's the model in which we operate. So when we were deliberating, I took on this responsibility a few months back, and I was having discussions with Dr. Mashelkar, and we decided that let us look at problem areas which are quite significant, which requires significant amount of collaboration, which will require different types of technology interventions. And we felt that water was definitely a very crucial element of the entire planning. The good thing about it was we already had Pune Knowledge Cluster, Ashwini Sardeshmukh, and we have Priya over here representing PKC. They were already working on an initiative along with Siddharth and Gurdas Nolkar and others. And we felt that since there is already some execution which is in progress, let us look at areas which they would like to research on, or things which are requiring deep understanding, collecting of data. So rather than doing something which is completely new, we said let's look at an effort which is already on and then focus on doing this particular area. So that's how this whole area picked up. Few things, we have very recently started focusing on some of the advanced technologies to be deployed in the MSME sector, in the government side and things like that, and we felt that let us look at those technologies and how they can be used in this context. There was another inspiration for organizing this was the focus that our government has started putting on space technology. And you would have heard, Prime Minister talk about usage of space technology for good governance. And we felt that let us look at building up a collaboration with ISRO as well, and looking at how they are preparing for enabling the satellite images and things like that. So there was various aspects which came together, and we felt that let us go ahead with this research. However, when we started putting together the scope of the research, we felt that the topic is quite vast. If you pick up any region, for example, itself, the scoping becomes quite difficult to go. So we said, let's do the roundtable first, so that the roundtable can potentially help us narrow down and identify areas which are super critical and which can really be executed in the time period that is required. So that was the objective. So this roundtable is primarily looking at two of the problems that we picked up from under the water security umbrella. And we have, I think all of you got the email that Geeta sent out yesterday. We said we will deliberate on 5 questions. The idea is to ensure that are those the right questions? Do we need to add other questions into it? Or do we want to shrink down these questions to just 2 so that the team can really focus and get details out of it? Again, we've got a very diverse set of experts on the table. I'm sure that there are some of these areas which will apply to your area of work and things like that. So the objective is not to just have a roundtable and forget about it, but also to expand the scope and enable other connects. So the plan is that there are a few people who we invited, but they couldn't be here in person. Over the next 2 weeks, we are going to connect with them and have, including the government officials who couldn't join us. We will have separate follow-ups so that we are able to cover their point of views into it. The reason why we got this scheduled this week was next week in Pune, there is a Pune Public Policy Festival which is being organized. And we are going to take advantage of the fact that there are policymakers who will be there, and we can take their inputs in whatever we are thinking. So that's the overall gist of the overall roundtable as well as the research. And we're very fortunate that both PKC and Gokhale Institute, primarily the Center for Sustainable Development that Gurdas leads, they agreed to partner along with us. And we strongly believe that partnerships is a very key element of the Sustainable Development Goals, and it will play a very crucial role. So again, thank you all of you for joining us today, and especially the students. Are they here? Yeah. Okay. So you got a gist of it, right? When we do the deliberations on the questions, the flow is that we will take 20 minutes per question, and we didn't want to break out. We will do it for the entire group, and one of us, myself, Ashwini, Siddharth, and Gurdas, we will anchor those questions and summarize those. So we hope to get done with the entire proceedings by about 1:30, 1:45. There is a break in between so that we can take the advantage of all of you, can network and exchange some thoughts as well. So with that, I'll hand over to Siddharth and Ashwini to give the overall perspective.
Okay, so I won't take much time here, but today we are here to discuss water security, and we put out a slide talking about the global context here as well. And there are 4 things which we tried to put on this slide. One is about water access. So how is water access in this space with respect to domestic use, industry use, and we can dwell more on that as well. Second is about the quality of water. So there are certain questions when it is raised about the kind of water we receive or what we let out. So we believe that whatever water we use and it goes through the STPs and then into the rivers becomes the drinking water of the downstream population. So it's necessary to also dwell on the water quality, because that has a direct relation with the public health as well. Then equitable distribution of water. So how different populations have an access to this water, whether it is equitable, non-equitable. And this is one of the emerging concerns as well. And then next is the climate change and mitigation, where we know that rainfall patterns are changing. We are getting more concentrated rains in shorter span of time instead of a natural 4 month of rainy season. We also get rains in non-rainy season days nowadays. So climate is changing. Of course, it's a global phenomena. We cannot do much at the local scale, but we are seeing effects of that as well. So how is this climate change also affecting water, and what kind of risk mitigation measures can also be implemented with respect to this? One thing is also we'll be looking at all of these things in the global context to see what are the best practices there and how it is looked at a global context, and then come down to a local context where we are trying to focus this study on the Pune metropolitan region. Next slide, please. So how is this water security in the present context? Like Deena mentioned, we had done some preliminary work where we came up with a concept that can we have a sustainable and a participatory water action plan for the Pune metropolitan region. And in that we had highlighted that we'll be looking at the availability of water, the usage of water across various sectors, what is happening to the treated waters, what is the water quality over there, and overall how climate and all of these things are affecting it. What we picked up from that concept was two main questions. One is the demand management and the water circularity part. So we all know that population is increasing, industrialization is growing, demands are growing. So whenever water is being talked about, it's mainly with the supply side, that how we can increase more supply, but it's very well known that the water resources are limited. So we thought we should focus more on demand management side and how water can be better and effectively managed, because there is hardly any chance where we can increase the supply, mainly because the reservoirs are limited. So here we are thinking about demand management, and under demand management also how we can have some of the best practices, can technology play a role over here, how policy interventions can be brought about in these things. And the next is water circularity. So water is being used and then it goes out of the system where it is being treated and then let out in rivers. But can we have a better model for repurposing and reusing of this treated waters? Why we chose this is also because with some of our interactions with the local governments and also now policies coming up in place where they are mandating that X percentage of water should be reused for landscaping, for gardening, for roadside dividers, etc., or for construction purposes also. We are also seeing can we come up with an economic model here for the ULBs, mainly because they are putting in a lot of infrastructure now even to set up tertiary treatment plants. So how these things can also serve as an economic or a revenue model which will go into that system.
So good morning once again. My name is Siddharth Desai. So as Ashwini mentioned, the two main areas that PKC, Gokhale Institute have been working on and what we identified, that is demand management and water circularity. I would like to explain a bit more on the rationale behind this. So if we see the total water supply value chain or total water value chain, you start with the supply sources. You have surface water, you have groundwater, you have desalination, and then it manifests into a transmission system or distribution system, and followed by the demand points. And demand points could be residential, residential, commercial, agricultural, and industrial. Now, if you see the focus areas of successive governments, most of it is focused around the supply side, be it the budgets, be it the policies, be it the regulation. A lot of focus has been given on the supply side and supply augmentation. So how do we increase more water resources, maybe through more dams, how we increase the uptake of groundwater from several of the large aquifers. But once the supply is made available, how exactly it is being utilized and how demand can and how water use efficiency is being focused. I think there is a lot of areas of improvements which can yield a much more in terms of water security than what supply augmentation can help. So when we look at the water value supply chain, the supply sources are already being worked upon a lot by the governments themselves, and a lot of expert consultants are involved in there. When you come to the middle section, that is the transmission and the distribution of water sector, you have a lot of efforts being put in by the local bodies. We know a lot of efforts are being done by Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad, PMR to reduce the water wastages, reduce NRW, non-revenue water. So there also you see a lot of efforts by the governments, and the value addition that we can do primarily could be surrounding around the data of efforts that they are already putting in terms of transmission and distribution. So how data insights can help the ULBs or the regulatory authorities to optimize the transmission and distribution systems and reduce the losses. That is one area that we looked at. On the demand management side, as Ashwini mentioned, the water use efficiency is one area which is neglected by by many local bodies or by successive governments. In fact, a lot of countries, they now are using water efficiency labeling standards. So like you have 2-star, 3-star, 5-star labeling standards for electronics. Similarly, they have these labeling standards for the water consuming devices like faucets, showers. So that signifies, or that signals to the market that some level of intent to reduce the consumption by optimizing the usage of water. There are several aspects within demand management. So one of the research questions that we are focusing on here is efficiency in water usage, and what policies, the best practices in the world, and what kind of regulation can we look at to introduce water use efficiency standards. As we speak right now, the National Mission for Clean Ganga under the Ministry of Jal Shakti is instituting what they are referring to as the National Water Use Efficiency Board, which is something similar to the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, which was instituted about 20-25 years back after the electricity bill of 2003. So it's still not implemented. It's still in I would say design or concept phase, the National Water Use Efficiency Standards. But this is an area which can yield a lot of benefits in terms of water security by reducing the wastages at the end use, be it domestic, be it commercial, be it industrial. There are several opportunities how we can reduce the wastages in the end use. Industries, for that matter, take a lot of effort to reduce the water consumption because it's a direct cost, but that is not a concern for the commercial and the domestic, and that is what comes to the next question about the value. How do you value water? And water valuation, a large part of it is how do we price water, what are the water tariffs. And Dr. Abhay Pete has been a veteran in water pricing, and we seek different models and methods how we can do water pricing. There are several models that are already implemented in India, but whether they are enforced is a big concern. We have water prices across the ULBs, but enforcement of those water prices and actually recovery and collection is also a challenge. So how do we look at the water pricing as a research question, or rather a broader research question or research topic of water valuation? In some of the interactions that we have had with the former Municipal Commissioner Kunal Kumar, who is now the Smart Cities Mission Director, he has been explaining his concept about data-backed evidence for coming to water for water tariffs and water pricing. His idea, and which most of us can concur with that, is that this is a political economy. The political economy around water is very strongly at play when it comes to water pricing. So the local politicians, the corporators, the MLAs, they have to be a part of this process in order for us to efficiently implement any kind of water pricing or water tariff regime. How do we as researchers help them convince their constituents to adopt and understand the need for water pricing or water tariffs? I think that is a key area which even the Smart Cities Mission Director appreciates, and that is what they are also keen to take up. So that is what we have highlighted here as a part of research question 2. The third research question is about circularity. So many cities now and states have come up with the water reuse or water recycling policies. Again, most of them are on paper, not much implemented. Mumbai Corporation, MCGM now, through their municipal sewage disposal project, MSDP, what they're referring to, going into 2026, 2027, they are envisioning a 50% recycling of their sewage after the required infrastructure is set up. So how do we look at what is the right level of circularity we can achieve for different regions depending on the geography, depending on the economics, and that is where the scenario analysis comes in for water circularity, that should we look at a 10% circularity considering what kind of demand mapping we are doing, should we look at a 20 or 30 or 50 like what Mumbai is doing, and some of the policies, what kind of capex, capital expenditure might be required, what kind of viability gap funding and how the financing could happen to some of these projects, and more importantly also from a carbon footprint perspective, the energy use of these circularity infrastructure that we put in. How do we make sense of it and promote policies to make sure that the ULBs, the state governments take serious note of it and work towards implementation of it. As Ashwini mentioned, the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is working on a 100 million liters a day tertiary treatment system to be set up in one of their localities, where they take in the treated water from one of the existing sewage treatment plants, treat it to a tertiary level, and then sell it to an industry. Now, what should be the selling price to industry? I think that also ties into the second research question, that what is the opportunity cost here for industries to use treated water versus the supplied water by MIDC. Also, what kind of baseline we set to the treated water quality. So when the Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation is planning to set up a 100 million liters a day large tertiary treatment plant, they cannot cater to individual needs of water quality to each specific industry. So what is the baseline? How do we set up a baseline for the treated water tank, and then the industries can enhance the water quality at their door based on their specific requirements. So understanding these has a lot of implication on the capital expenditure and the financing model that will go into that. So that is a model, a circularity aspect that we want to cover under the research question number 3. One more aspect, I'll just give you a quick example. What we have come across while working in the National Mission for Clean Ganga, the industrial belts around Pune, for example, Kurkum area is a very process and pharmaceutical heavy industry. So a lot of water demand is there in Kurkum area. Ironically, it also falls in the watershed or the rain shadow region of the Western Ghats. So water availability is a concern, and it's already a water stressed region. But they already have a large source of sewage from the upstream municipal corporations and municipalities, be it Pune, Pimpri-Chinchwad, Baramati, and all the municipal councils around. So we have a demand, we have a supply. So how do we match these two to make sure that the water security for those industries is achieved? So this is a larger question within circularity, and the policies around that, how can those can be implemented. So this is just one example of what circularity, a good circular policy can achieve in terms of water security for the industries. The fourth research question is more around the governance and the regulatory model for the region as such. Now we all know that water does not follow administrative boundaries. So you have the ecological boundary and you have the administrative boundaries. And we often see, most of us have been hearing, watching news, reading in the newspapers, that there is a tendency to pass on the buck if there is a water supply issue or a wastewater or a river pollution issue. One of the ULBs may say that no, this pollution that we see in this particular section of the river is coming from the upstream, which is in a different jurisdiction. So the administrative boundaries are the implementation, is where the implementation happens. But when it comes to water, the ecological boundary is more important. So when we talk about water security at a regional level, let's say Pune metropolitan region or at a district level, how do we look at the existing governance and the regulatory model to address this dichotomy between the natural boundary or the ecological boundary and the administrative boundaries, and what kind of overlaps are there which we need to look at, and how to solve these governance issues. Some of the ULBs or some of the regions within India, they have addressed this issue by establishing a separate water board considering the geographic limits, which is a model we can look at. Even within Pune, just to give you a parallel, in 2007, I think the Pune Municipal Transport and PCMT, Pune Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Transport, they merged to create PMPML. Is that kind of a model that can be looked also at water? So right now, PMC have a separate water department and drainage department. PCMC have a separate water department and drainage department. Considering this aspect, the universality of the water sources and also the downstream they are all releasing into the same river, can we look at a combined model for water regulatory and governance for the entire region? That is what is the related to research question number 4. And finally, research question number 5 is where we can introduce opportunities or have identify opportunities for introducing technology to enhance data collection, data acquisition, create data insights, create decision dashboards based on data, which can affect or which can help and augment the decision making capacity of the relevant authorities. So that is research question number 5. Now, how to go about this research framework is that first we need to start with the water budget of the region. So whichever research question we undertake, it's very important that we understand how water flows within the region. Recently, Bangalore has done a very good job through Well Labs to create a water budget for Bangalore. And we have a template ready for that, and one of the researchers there involved, we are in touch with her. So can we look at that model for Pune as well, to how do we create a water budget? What are the supply side, what are demand side, and how do we match the supply and demand? That is the water budget. Then we try to make demand projections in consultation with the administration, that how do we look at water demand for 2030 or 2040 or 2050, and then start with the use bifurcations, consumptive, non-consumptive, and look at these research questions from a water budget and a demand projections context. So that would be the framework that what we have thought about. Now, this is exactly as what Dina mentioned, we need to deliberate today whether these are the right questions to achieve water security for Pune. Have we missed out on anything? Do we need to add anything? Do we need to shrink anything? And what should be the framework? That is the agenda for today. And with that, I would like to now hand over back to Dina for the next section of the roundtable. Thank you.
Thanks, Siddharth. I think it's very comprehensive. I think we have been sending out a lot of the information, and I think most of you are experts in this field. So, we just tried our best to put a perspective around it. We are not doing a round of introduction because it will take a relatively long time. Some of you have shared your profiles, so it is available in your folder, so that in case you want to refer. But one request would be that in case your name is not there when you are speaking, just for the first time, just do a small intro. That would definitely help, so that the others would have the benefit of knowing you. So we'll start off. I think we are all set. Yeah, Gurudas? Yeah. So we'll start off. The way we will do is we will have a timer so that we don't use a significant amount of time just on one topic. Especially if there are specific views which require a lot more deliberation, and it probably just let's ensure that everybody gets an opportunity to share their view. There are 5 different areas. Some of you may be able to contribute to a few of those. So stay with those particular topics. And once we are done with our 20 minutes of deliberation, we'll take a timeout, and then we will have one of us summarize this. So the first one question, Ashwini is the moderator for that. So Ashwini, over to you.
Okay. So the first question is about efficiency in water usage, and we like to hear views with respect to policy, regulation, and best practices. So like Siddharth mentioned some time back, we know a few best practices with respect to efficiency in water usage also. For example, industries nowadays use showers or faucets where the water flow is regulated, or they have better mechanisms for reusing the waters which they use within their premises for the landscapes, etc. Like you also mentioned, some of the countries actually have these standards fitted in the buildings as well, to ensure that only a limited amount of water comes out. We also have large amount of technologies now which are sensors or which are controlling how much water should be dispensed, etc. But we really like to hear about the policy, regulation. So some of these things are in place, but how they should be regulated, what should be the framework to make sure that it's a compulsory thing, or it makes sure that the water is being efficiently used. So the floor is open. We can start.
So just as a guideline, there is a button here on the mic, so you can just press it so that your mic gets activated, and then you can start.
Yeah, good morning everyone, and first of all thanks to the DIS for arranging such a nice group for the discussion on various critical issues related to water infrastructure. Here the first question is related to efficiency in water use. Basically our views in this particular case, whether we are really aiming at delivering 135 liter per capita per day, that is the starting point. At Government of India level, whenever we were interacting with Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs at CPHO level, in fact, at national level, we are seriously thinking of reducing these norms from 135 even for 150 to something lower. Because of the water scarcity, which is everyone is facing the same issue. Whenever we are talking about 135 LPCD, naturally the flow is going way beyond. 135 at the consumer end, accounting officially 15% losses, it is reaching up to 158 or 160 liter per capita. And when 160 liter per capita to be maintained in the storage reservoir, automatically adding evaporation and other losses, your entire system collapse. And therefore, the first activity must be considered whether we really need, whether that 45, 55, 75, 90 liter, 135 liter or 150 liter. So from that perspective, the first and foremost issue to be considered the realistic water assessment. What is needed at the consumer end? Because whenever we are planning as an urban planner and urban infrastructure consultant working in this region, for this PMRD also we are one of the principal consultants for this entire master planning of water sector. In all those cases, on one side Government of India is stating that 55 LPCD for the rural water supply under Jal Jeevan Mission. Immediately on the boundary, whether PMC or PCMC boundary or Talegaon or Dehu Road Municipal Council is there, they are talking about 135 liter. So on one side, just within the distance of 10 meter or say 100 meter, how can you differentiate whether they will get 135 and this village or this guy should get 55 liter? So there is a effect of either side, and there is a stress on the urban local bodies. So that's why before few years, may I continue for one more minute? Yeah. So before few years there was one rule with urban local bodies that they should consider the 5 kilometer periphery and that effect to be considered in urban water supply infrastructure planning. But now under different missions that activity is somehow disturbed, and therefore there is no rational arriving at the demand from various sources. So efficiency, I think it is the second part. First you need to analyze from different perspectives, automatically you will arrive at the rational answers of every question. So this is my first view. Of course we will discuss. Thank you.
मी सुरेश खानापूरकर, अवकाश प्राप्त वरिष्ठ भूवैज्ञानिक, फाउंडर ऑफ शिरपूर पॅटर्न. हा विषय मला समजला आहे. याच्यामध्ये आपल्याला पहिली गोष्ट करावी लागेल, ही जे आपण पाणी देतोय 135 किंवा 200 लिटर, तिथे आपण जलजीवन मिशनमध्ये आपण दिला 55 लिटर पाणी. इट इज मोर दॅन सफिशियंट. तर हा नॉर्म कमी केला पाहिजे. पहिली गोष्ट, हा 55 लिटर खूप झालं पाणी. दुसरा भाग, आपण जे आपलं पाणी आहे, बेसिनचं पाणी आणि आंघोळीचं पाणी आहे, हे खाली टाक्या सांभाळून ते जर गार्डन दिलं आणि कार वर्ष दिला. सध्या पुण्यामध्ये सर्रास कार धुणं चालू आहे आपल्या या पाण्याने. जे ट्रीटेड वॉटर आहे, पाणी कार धुतो आपण प्रत्येक सोसायटीमध्ये, त्यांना हे पाणी देऊ शकलो आपण गार्डनिंगला, आणि हे पाणी बचत होईल. तुम्ही साधी गोष्ट आहे, आपल्याकडून पाहुणा आला आपण त्याला ग्लास भरून पाणी देतो, नका देऊ पाणी, त्याला लागत देतो, एक घोट घेतो, आपण फेकून देतो, उष्ट झालं म्हणून. एका क्षणाला हिंदुस्थानमध्ये किती कोटी लिटर पाणी वाया जातं याची कल्पना करा. त्यामुळे त्याला पाणी भांड्यात ठेवून पूर्वी आपली पद्धत होती, तांब्या भांड्याची पद्धत होती, त्याला लागेल तेवढं घ्यायचा. हे केलं पाहिजे. आणि त्यामुळे आणि शेवटी मीटरिंग केलं पाहिजे. प्रत्येक घराला मीटर दिलं पाहिजे पाण्याचं. जेव्हा मीटरिंग सुरू होतं, बिलिंग येतं, तेव्हा माणूस पाणी वापरतो, काटकसरी वापरतो. शिरपूर सारखा एक लहान तालुका प्लेस आहे, तिथे मीटर्स आहेत घरोघरी, आणि त्यांचं आमचं जवळ 30% पाणी वाचलंय आमचं. त्यामुळे तिथे एक तर पैसा जेव्हा द्यावा लागतो स्वतःला, आता सोसायटीत मीटर आहे, पण मी म्हणतो त्या इंडिव्हिज्युअल फ्लॅटला मीटर दिलं पाहिजे. कारण सोसायटी मीटर दिल्यानंतर काय उपयोग नाही, तो म्हणतो सोसायटी माझी बनणारच आहे, माझी मीटरिंग करणार आहे, तो काळजी करत नाही. त्या इंडिव्हिज्युअल फ्लॅटला जर मीटर देऊ शकलो आपण, ते पाण्याची एकदम खूप मोठी बचत होणार आहे. आणि असा प्रकारचा वापर करू शकलो आपण, तर पुण्यामध्ये पाणी कमी नाही. दुसरी दुसरा विषय आपण मी तोही बोलून बघतो की त्याच्यामध्ये कुठल्याही टंचाईला 3 गोष्टी आपल्याला लक्षात आणल्या पाहिजे: उत्पादन वाढ, वितरण समानता आणि उपभोगावर संयम. आता इथे आपल्याकडे जे टेरेस आहे प्रत्येक बिल्डिंगचं, त्याचे जे पडलं पण सगळं वाया आहे. ते जर आपण साठवू शकलो, कारण बोरमध्ये पाणी टाकणं शक्य नाही, कारण प्रत्येक बोर पाणी हे याची गॅरंटी नाही. त्यामुळे आपल्याला तिथे किती पाणी पडतं त्या हिशोबाने जर टाकं बनवलं सिमेंटचं, तर ते पाणी त्यांना टँकर वेळ येणार नाही त्या सोसायटीला. असं अनेक सोसायटी केलेलं आहे, पुण्यामध्ये केलेलं आहे, मी ते पाहिलं आहे. हे जर केलं आपण तर ते सुद्धा पाणीवर. अशा प्रकारे माझे या विषयावर माझे व्ह्यू आहे. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद सर.
सॉरी,
माझं नाव दत्ता देशकर. मी सिंगापूरच्या पाण्याचा अभ्यास केलेला आहे आणि माझ्या असं लक्षात आलेलं आहे की प्रत्येकाला येणारं वॉटर बिल जे आहे त्या वॉटर बिलमध्ये 3 आकडे असतात. पहिला आकडा तुम्ही स्वतः वापरलेलं पाणी, दुसरा आकडा तुमच्या एरियामध्ये वापरलं जाणारं सरासरी पाणी, आणि तिसरा आकडा तुमच्या शहरामध्ये वापरलं जाणारं सरासरी पाणी. हे 3 आकडे प्रत्येक बिलावर प्रत्येक महिन्यामध्ये येत असतात. त्याची तुलना केल्यानंतर आपल्या लक्षात येतं की आपण पाणी जास्त वापरलेलं आहे का कमी वापरलेलं आहे. त्यामुळे एक नैतिक बंधन प्रत्येक माणसावर येऊ शकतं. हे पहिलं बंधन. आणि दुसरं म्हणजे तो नैतिक बंधन पाळत नसेल तर त्याच्यावर सक्ती करता येईल का याबद्दल सुद्धा विचार केला जाऊ शकतो. इतक्या बारकाव्याने तिथे अभ्यास होऊ शकतो. ही सिस्टीम आपण आपल्या राज्यात इंट्रोड्यूस करण्यासाठी सगळ्यात पहिले आता खानापूरकर साहेबांनी सांगितल्याप्रमाणे पाण्याचं मीटरिंग तर झालं पाहिजे ना. ते जर झालं नाही त्या सगळ्या गोष्टी काल्पनिक ठरतात. इतक्या बारकाव्याने पाण्याच्या बाबतीत विचार जर झाला तरच तो यशस्वी होऊ शकेल असं मला वाटतं. धन्यवाद.
सो आपल्याकडे सावणे सर पिंपरी चिंचवड पाणी पुरवठ्याचे चीफ आहेत. तर तुमचं काय म्हणणं आहे मीटरिंग, खानापूरकर सरांनी आणि यांनी जो आता विषय मांडला मीटरिंगचा चॅलेंजेस तुम्हाला, कारण ग्राउंडवरती जास्त चांगलं माहिती आहे.
नमस्कार, मी श्रीकांत सवणे. मला थोडंसं या विषयावरती बोलायचंच आहे, कारण पिंपरी चिंचवड महापालिकेने संपूर्ण शहरामध्ये मीटरिंग सिस्टीम सुरू केलेला आता 7 वर्ष पूर्ण झालेली आहे आणि आमच्याकडे जवळपास 99% मीटरिंग झालेलं आहे. बेसिकली पाण्याचा वापर हा एक माणसाच्या बिहेवियरचा प्रश्न आहे. मी जे अनुभवतोय महापालिकेमध्ये आमच्याकडे काही भागामध्ये लोक 500 LPCDनी पाणी वापरतात, मीटर लावलेलं असल्यामुळे आम्हाला समजत आहे. तर काही भागामध्ये ते 100 LPCDचाच वापर आहे. म्हणजे हा बिहेवियरल चेंज का व्हायला आवश्यक आहे. तर आपण रेस्ट्रिक्शन म्हणतो फक्त की 135 LPCD दिलं पाहिजे किंवा अंडरग्राऊंड सिवरेज सिस्टीम आहे म्हणून आपण त्याला 15% ऍड करून 160 LPCD दिलं पाहिजे वापर तेवढा. परंतु काही लोक किंवा काही जण पाण्याचा वापर वारंवार करतात आणि हे जे वारंवार होणारं जे प्रमाण आहे, जसं आता हे सिंगापूरचं उदाहरण त्यांनी दिलं, नैतिकता, पाण्याच्या वापराची नैतिकता म्हणा किंवा माणसाचं बिहेवियरल चेंज जो आहे ना तो होणं फार गरजेचं आहे. मी आमच्या महापालिकेचं पाणी पुरवठ्याचं सिस्टीम सांगतो. आम्ही साधारण आता 600 दशलक्ष लिटर म्हणजे MLD पाणी दररोज पुरवतो. पिंपरी चिंचवडची आता एस्टिमेटेड पॉप्युलेशन आम्ही कन्सिडर करतो 32 लाख, जी 2011च्या सेन्ससनुसार 17,23,000 होती. पण आमच्याकडे जी ग्रोथ रेट आहे आमचा तो भारताच्या पॉप्युलेशन ग्रोथ रेटच्या तिप्पट आहे. जवळपास भारताचा रेट जर 2.1% असेल पर ॲनम तर तो आमचा 7.2% आहे. तर हे शहरं वाढत आहेत, पण आमचा पाण्याचा स्रोत तर लिमिटेडच आहे. आता काही सोर्स भामा आसखेडचा आणि आंध्राचा आमचा वाढलेला आहे. त्याच्यामुळे आम्ही 2031 पर्यंतच्या लोकसंख्येला आज ज्या पद्धतीने पाणी देतोय साधारण 160-170 LPCD ॲव्हरेज तेवढं देऊ शकू, पण त्याच्यानंतर ते होऊ शकणार नाही. आणि शासनाचं धोरण आहे की 5 किलोमीटरचा पेरिफेरीमध्ये सुद्धा महापालिकांनी पाणी देण्यासाठीचा विचार करावा. आम्ही आमच्या क्षेत्रातला विचार करू शकत नाही. पण वॉटर सिक्युरिटीच्या बाबतीत जर मुद्दा कुठला पहिल्यांदा घ्यायचा असेल ना तर तो म्हणजे पाणी प्रत्येकाने कटाक्षानं काळजीपूर्वक वापरलं पाहिजे. आणि त्यांना जो नॉर्म शासनाने ठरवून दिलेला आहे त्या नॉर्म्स एवढं पाणी जर वापरलं तर आपण आणखीन दुप्पट लोकसंख्येला आहे हे पाणी पुरवू शकतो. सो बिहेवियरल चेंज येण्यासाठी जास्तीत जास्त प्रयत्न होणं गरजेचं.
बिहेवियरल चेंजसाठी वन ऑफ द फॅक्टर्स इज प्राइसिंग. तो आपण नंतर विषय येऊया त्याच्यावरती. त्याच्यावर
प्राइसिंगवरची अडचण मी तुम्हाला सांगतो. महानगरपालिकेमध्ये महापालिकेची बॉडी असते, निवडून आलेले नगरसेवक असतात, त्यांना लोकांचा रोष घ्यायचा नसतो. आता बॉडी नाही आहे, परंतु शासनाचं त्याच्यावरती नियंत्रण आहे. तर शासनाचे प्रतिनिधी म्हणून आमदार आहेत, खासदार आहेत, ते देखील आत्ता म्हणजे प्रशासकीय राजवटीत सुद्धा पाण्याचे दर वाढवू देत नाहीत. दर वाढवले म्हणजे पाण्याचा वापर कमी होईल हे फक्त 10% लोकांनाच लागू होईल. बाकीची 90% लोक जे आहेत ते आम्ही पैसे भरायला तयार आहे असं म्हणतील, पण माझ्याकडे पैसे भरून पण पाणी द्यायला नाहीये. लक्षात घ्या. म्हणजे आम्ही कितीही चांगले प्रस्ताव केले, कितीही दर वाढवले, तरी लोक काय म्हणतील, आज माझ्याकडे पैसे आहेत, मला पाहिजे तेवढं पाणी द्या, मी तुम्हाला पैसे द्यायला तयार आहे. तिथे तुमची वॉटर सिक्युरिटी होणार नाही. थँक्यू.
सर्व
प्रसाद सेवेकरी, पाणी पंचायत. आय एम अ सिव्हिल इंजिनियर अँड वॉटर रिसोर्स प्रोफेशनल. पाणी शहरी आणि ग्रामीण या दोन्ही याच्यामध्ये आम्ही काम करतो. मुद्दा मला याच्यामध्ये अजून एक मांडायचा आहे, म्हणजे साहेबांनी आता सांगितलं तो बिहेवियर चेंजचा इश्यू. इट्स व्हेरी इंटरेस्टिंग. नॉर्मली बिहेवियर चेंजचा इश्यू हा नॉन गव्हर्नमेंटल एजन्सीजकडनं खूप मोठ्या प्रमाणावरती मांडला जातो कुठल्याही याच्यामध्ये. म्हणजे इट इज सपोज टू बी द राईट बेस्ड थिंग फॉर द NGOs टू कमेंट अपॉन द बिहेवियरल चेंज, बट आय एम हॅपी दॅट इश्यू हॅज बीन रेज्ड बाय द गव्हर्नमेंट. माझा मुद्दा याच्यामध्ये असा आहे की आपण जेव्हा वॉटर यूज एफिशियन्सीवरती विचार करतोय आणि आपण PMRDA रिजन म्हणतोय, तेव्हा या रिजनमध्ये अर्बन ॲज वेल ॲज पेरी अर्बन आणि रुरल हे दोन्ही भाग आहेत. त्यामुळे इट इज नॉट जस्ट वॉटर फॉर ड्रिंकिंग. वॉटर फॉर ड्रिंकिंग हे आता साहेबांनी जसं सांगितलं, फाईन, 180 लिटर्स पर पर्सन पर डे पाण्याची व्यवस्था पिंपरी चिंचवड महापालिकेने केलेली आहे. whereas PMC, if I mistake not, it gives more than 245 liters per person per day. As against, म्हणजे as against याच्यापेक्षा जास्तही असेल
एक
ते.
सेकंद इंटरव्ह्यू करतो. पिंपरी चिंचवड महापालिकेची पॉप्युलेशन 32 लाख धरली आणि आमचा रोजचा पाणी पुरवठा 600 MLD आहे. पुण्याची पॉप्युलेशन तुम्ही सांगा किती आहे, पण त्यांचं वॉटर सप्लाय आमच्यापेक्षा तिप्पट आहे.
हो, मी 225 हा कॉन्झर्वेटिव्ह आकडा सांगितला, कारण वेगळ्या वेगळ्या फिगर्स येतात. व्हॉट हॅपन्स इज दॅट वॉटर कॅन नेव्हर बी अ पॉलिटिकल इश्यू. वॉटर इज ऑलवेज अ पॉलिटिकल इश्यू. सो वी हॅव टू अंडरस्टँड दॅट अँड देन गो अहेड. आता याच्यामध्ये तुम्ही जो डायग्राम फ्लो मांडलेला होता, याच्यातल्या मुद्द्यांमध्ये वॉटर यूज एफिशियन्सी आपल्याला जर हवी असेल आणि ती जर म्युन्सिपल एरियामध्ये हवी असेल, तर वी नीड टू लुक ॲट द डिस्ट्रीब्युशन नेटवर्क्स, द एज of the distribution networks, and the efficiency with which the water is distributed within these distribution networks. For more often than not, the distribution networks do not complete the loops that they are supposed to complete. आणि याच्यामुळे पाणी जितक्या प्रमाणात पोचायला पाहिजे तितक्या प्रमाणात ते पोचतच नाही. मग याचा परिणाम कसा होतोय, तर आयदर इट गोज फॉर, इट इज पिल्फर्ड or it starts leaking because of the pressure variance. कारण लूप पूर्ण होत नाही. हा बेसिक मुद्दा असतो पाणी पुरवठ्याचा, की कुठूनही सुरुवात केल्यानंतर तो लूप पूर्ण झाला पाहिजे, म्हणजे प्रेशर डिसेमिनेट होत जातं, डिसिपेट होत जातं. हे आपल्याकडे most of the water supply distribution networks within the municipal region do not follow this. That also happens because, again as I said, it becomes a political issue. की इथे हे नवीन कॉलनी माझ्या मताप्रमाणे व्हायलाच पाहिजे, तिथे पाणी द्यायला पाहिजे. ज्या ठिकाणी मे बी 1000 लोक राहायची क्षमता होती, तिथे अचानक एकदम 10,000 लोक येतील इतकी वस्ती होते, आणि तरी तिथे त्या पाण्याची व्यवस्था तीच असते. सो द नेटवर्क डझंट सपोर्ट the unplanned so-called development that the city fathers plan upon. Are we in a position to talk or act upon that? That would be the question that maybe the roundtable could think of. हे झालं अर्बन एरियामधलं, विच डिपेंड्स अपॉन द डिस्ट्रीब्युशन ॲज आय फील, बिकॉज पाणी तेवढंच आहे आणि ते आपल्याला सगळ्यांना द्यायचं आहे, आणि ते सगळ्यांना द्यायचं आहे, ते सगळे दरवेळेला दरवर्षी हे वाढत जातात. So with an increasing population which is much more beyond the population increase that is considered in the water supply projections. Second thing is looking at the changing climate patterns, we tend to shift the water use period every year. किती वर्षासाठी असला पाहिजे? 9 महिने, 12 महिने, का त्याच्यापेक्षा जास्त, का त्याच्यापेक्षा कमी? आपण जसा जसा मे महिना येत जाईल तसं तसं शासन आणि पुढारी यांच्याकडनं स्टेटमेंट्स यायला लागतात की नाही नाही पाणी इतके दिवस पुरणार आहे, नाही पाणी आता आम्ही जुलैपर्यंत पुरवू, नाही आम्ही ते जून 15 पर्यंतच पुरवू. सो वी नीड टू थिंक अबाउट व्हॉट इज द एक्झॅक्ट पिरियड फॉर विच वी आर कॅल्क्युलेटिंग द वॉटर सप्लाय इक्वेशन्स. किती पिरियडसाठी ते असायला हवं. अँड धिस लीड्स अस टू वॉटर बजेटिंग इन the municipal areas, which is never sort of done. की नक्की किती पाणी हवं आहे, नक्की किती लोक पाणी कंझ्युम करणार आहेत, किती लोक त्या कंझ्युम केलेल्या पाण्याचे पैसे देतील हा आणखीन वेगळा मुद्दा. पण इतर कशासाठी ते पाणी वापरलं जातं अँड व्हॉट इज द लॉस. म्हणजे व्हर्च्युअल वॉटर हे तर वेगळंच राहिलं, पण द लॉसेस इन पिल्फरेजेस अँड लिकेजेस कन्सिडरिंग दोज, पुणे म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन वॉटर सप्लाय माइट बी वन ऑफ समवेअर अमंग द टॉप, की almost about 46% water is lost as leakage and pilferage, if I have read right and remember right. So this is something which we need to work upon. I mean, we can come back to the figure, but this is a humongous, huge figure that we need to address. This is part of the municipal water supply. I'll talk more about the water use efficiency in the rural or peri-urban regions, but maybe later. I won't take more time.
गुड मॉर्निंग. बिहेवियरल चेंजवर बोलतोय आपण. मला वाटतं की सगळ्यांच्या मनात हे बिंबवायला हवं की पिण्याचं पाणी टॉयलेटमध्ये फ्लश करायचं पाप आहे, त्याशिवाय पर्याय नाही त्याला. मला नेहमी प्रश्न पडतो की सकाळी उठल्यानंतर देवाची प्रार्थना करतो आणि टॉयलेटमध्ये पिण्याचं पाणी फ्लश करतो, त्याच वेळेला लातूरला कुठेतरी भगिनी 6 किलोमीटर जाऊन पाणी आणत असते. खरं तर त्या विषयावर मला नंतर बोलूच. आय थिंक दॅट दिस एंटायर शुड बी इंटिग्रेटेड विथ द वॉटर फुटप्रिंट, and one has to increase the green water footprint. We can promote the direct use of the rainwater. Then by using the various efficient gadgets, as we have put the water aerators and the taps, then water efficient equipments, water efficient washing machine, then that will reduce your blue water footprint. Regarding the grey water footprint, can we make it compulsory to treat and reuse that water? And if we reduce these three, I mean my success story which I implemented in one of the residential complex, we have reduced almost water footprint by 99%, 95%. It sounds impossible, but we did it by recycling the water, the wastewater, and that wastewater which we have taken it from sewage, I mean the grey water, treated it and send it back for the flush into toilets. It easily reduces around 30 to 40% of fresh water consumption. And in one of the complex, we treated it further and use it for the non-touch water. It means washing machine, etc. So this concept is implemented. I feel that the entire thing should be considered in the integrated manner. The water footprint, then we can think of ask the people to use the water efficient products. So this all together will, the problem is that we have a fixed quantity of water, our demand is going up, so we have to manage with the fixed quantity of water. So I think the water, and then later on may I talk about the circular economy of water. I will talk it later on, but right now the best way is integrating the efficiency with the water footprint. Thank you.
Can I speak for a couple of minutes? I am Dr. Samir Shastri, representing Srinagar College of Engineering and an NGO, Appa Patwardhan Saphai व पर्यावरण तंत्र निकेतन. I have just 2 points to mention. साहेबांनी जे सांगितलं की एका कुठेतरी 100 LPCD वापर आहे आणि दुसरीकडे 500, तर मे बी वी कॅन प्रपोज टेलिस्कोपिक मीटरिंग. जसं आपल्या कराडजवळ मलकापूरमध्ये केलेलं आहे किंवा अजून 1-2 ठिकाणी आहे. सो वी शुड हॅव टेलिस्कोपिक मीटरिंग. आणि दुसरं अवेअरनेस. तर अवेअरनेस करता मी असं म्हणेन की आपले सराफ साहेब आहेत तर ते यंग मुलांबरोबर काम करतात. सो कॅच देम यंग शुड बी द मंत्रा. आता मोठ्या लोकांवर किंवा यांच्यावर काम करण्याच्या ऐवजी शाळातनं जर हे अवेअरनेस प्रोग्राम्स घेतले तर डेफिनेटली वी विल सी दॅट इफेक्ट मे बी 10 years or 15 years डाऊन द लाईन. पण ते पण एक करता येईल. या दोन गोष्टी मला याच्याकरता सांगायच्यात. बाकी मी वेस्ट वॉटर रिसायकलवर नंतर बोलीन.
समीरनी एक मिनिट, समीरनी मेन्शन केले, डॉक्टर समीरनी. सो अवर डिस्ट्रिक्ट रोटरी इंटरनॅशनल 3131 वी आर implementing a program called environmental stewardship, and till date we have trained around 2000 youth which go back and do all the saving and the conservation, and they do the wonderful task. We give them certificate and the badge.
Hello, my name is Jagdish Chaudhary. I work with TCS. I'm not an expert in water, but on the behavioral part, just one thought came to my mind. So, what thought of suggesting is that this reckless use of water by people who have more money. I think we should explore possibility of having slab rates as the consumption goes up, the way we have in the taxation, etc. As the consumption goes up, we could increase the.
Same thing I mentioned.
Does it? I was just wanting to ask that.
Reverse direction.
So to add to that, public shaming is another way of doing this at a city or county level. If you just make numbers visible to people beyond just the phone, the electricity, the water bills, if you put it in newspapers and all that this district use per person or per household so much water, I think that creates a sense of competition and that kind of changes the behavior also. The other thing is looking at old, we all look at the new infrastructure being built, but there's a lot of leakage in old infrastructure. Old buildings where they have water tanks, there's a lot of leakage, even the taps, there's one person who goes to everybody's house and fixes taps. That's of course not going to work for the entire city and state, but something like that where we put regulations where the old buildings also have to look at the water infrastructure and have low flow meters and things like that. Those things could help overall efficiency. Yeah. Thank you.
मी शैलेश देशपांडे, मी TCS मध्ये काम करतो, रिमोट सेन्सिंग या विषयात काम करतो. पुरवठ्याविषयी सुद्धा आता एक मुद्दा बोलला गेला. जरी आपण इथं पाण्याच्या वापराविषयी बोलतो तरी पुरवठ्याची क्षमता वाढवणे आणि ती चांगल्या पद्धतीने वापरणं हे सुद्धा खूप गरजेचं आहे. विशेषतः आपल्या इथलं पाणलोट क्षेत्र जे आहे सगळं त्याची व्यवस्थापन हा खूप महत्त्वाचा मुद्दा आहे. कारण ते व्यवस्थित न वापरल्यामुळे असा बऱ्याचदा आहे ती क्षमता पूर्णपणे भरणं न जाणं किंवा सिल्टेशन म्हणतो आपण, गाळा चाटणं, ह्या बऱ्याच गोष्टी आहेत. जरी युसेजची नसला तरी हाच एक छोटासा मुद्दा होता. आणि दुसरा एक प्रश्न होता मला की तो मीटरच्या विषयी बोलण्यात आला की प्रत्येक घरात मीटर देऊन सुद्धा कदाचित पाण्याचा वापर तेवढा अपेक्षित का कमी होत नाही. तर त्याची काही कारणं काय असू शकतात का, किंवा तसा काही अनुभव असेल तर तो अर्थात सूचना नाही, चर्चेचा विषय त्याला नंतर घेऊ शकतो. पण तो आणि नीतिमत्ता आणि पाण्याचं खरं मूल्य जाणून घेणं आणि त्याविषयी वर्तणूक करण्याविषयी काही शैक्षणिक योजना किंवा काय करता येईल हा पण विचार करू शकतो आपण. कारण तो मोठा विषय, मला वाटतं फक्त NGOनी काम करून ते भागणार नाही नक्की.
So just a quick point on the demand management side. I think if you are looking at Pune district, one dilemma that always confronts us is we tend to look at demand in agriculture, demand for industry and demand in urban centers on very different metrics. I mean, I'll give you a simple example for Pune. Just bear with me for a minute. If you ask around this room whether sugarcane is a good crop in agriculture, and most of us are living in a city like Pune, we know what the answer is going to be. And we know, how researchers and people in urban India look at a crop of sugarcane for the farmer. Now, if you actually look at a typical urban footprint, such as in Pune, I mean, take the example of this very building, or even forget that, I'll closer to home. My society is built on 1 hectare of land. And if we actually use what Mr. Sawney is saying as the actual consumption of water, I won't give you the calculations, but let's say 200
25 liters per capita per day, because that is exactly what we use in our society. If you calculate the annual footprint of water on my own housing society, it is equivalent to about 2,500 millimeters of water. And I think when we look at demand management, the first thing that we need to do in an area like Pune district is bring calculation of demand on a greatest common denominator. Normalize it to land. I think we are no longer left with the option of looking at liters per capita day on one side and millimeters of water as application in crops on the other side. So I think bringing some semblance of equity in the metrics, I think, is one big issue that I want to flag. And I think unless we get our calculations in order, we really won't be able to address the question of equity and efficiency both when we look at demand management. The other points may be a little later.
एक मिनिट, मी आता जलसाक्षरतेचा विषय निघाला म्हणून सांगतो. गेल्या 25 वर्षामध्ये मी जवळपास 5 लाख विद्यार्थ्यांपर्यंत पोहोचलेलो आहे. त्यांना पाणी कसं वापरायचं, पाण्याचं संवर्धन कसं करायचं याबद्दल माहिती दिलेली आहे. छोट्या पुस्तिका पण लिहिल्या आहेत. त्या पुस्तिका मी विनामूल्य वाटत असतो. ज्याला पाहिजे त्याला त्या पुस्तिका मी देत असतो. त्यामुळे जलसाक्षरतेचं काम हे मोठ्या प्रमाणात व्हायला पाहिजे अशी माझी इच्छा आहे. मी एकटा सध्या हे काम करतो. असे समजा 1000 माणसं निर्माण झाले तर लाखो लोकांपर्यंत आपण, लाखो विद्यार्थ्यांपर्यंत आपण पोहोचू शकू याची मला खात्री वाटते.
So we had about 25 minutes on this question. I'll spend just one more minute. I think Vaishali wants to comment something, but I'll really appreciate if we also have one or two quick thoughts on the efficiency standards which can be brought in with respect to usage. But and how do we mandate that? But just a minute more.
Yeah. So Vaishali Patkar here from Bhujal Abhiyan. So very important thing is about when we are speaking about water that is 250 liters or whatever liter it is, only we are speaking from the dam water. What about the groundwater that we have not calculated, and that number again adds more. When we are speaking about the efficiency, again the best practice again aerators, it has to be compulsory. The water aerators, if it will make lots of difference immediately on a water usage. So only right now I would like to add this point since we are speaking about the best practices.
Most important thing is any scientific inputs are here. Nobody has said what type of water we require for this. There are 40 parameters. Are you aware of this? 40 parameters are there for any type of water. Unless and until we know these 40 parameters, one cannot judge what type of supply you need for your house, agriculture and all that. So this point for this must be noted. Then I will come for hygiene and all that.
So very quickly I'll just go through what all was collected in the first question. I'm not going into the details of what everyone said, but coming up with that if we have a standard norm of 135 LPCD, then is that much amount of water necessary? What is the rationale behind why 135 and why not less, why not more? We also heard about how metering is being installed as per the Shirpur pattern and how it has come up with better water usage and better efficiency. There's also a suggestion that we should have water meters at every flat instead of a society, and that's also which came up in a Times of India article 2 days back, where what is the current state of metering in Pune, and do we need it at an individual flat level or do we need it at a society level? To begin with, the idea is to put it at a society level. Then we also heard about the distribution network, the NRW, the leakages in the system, and 45% is a huge amount which we have. As per the court mandate, it should be around 15 to 18%. So we anyways are much beyond that. So we need better distribution system. We also, as a small pilot with PCMC, tried to do with a tech where can you have better technology to detect leakages, and there are technologies available in India as well as abroad where you can detect leakage and instantly the corporation can plug it. We were also shown by one of a company that they have a dashboard where they know where the leakage is, and it gets informed to the government that there is leakage here and they can come and plug it instantly as well. So we need a better distribution efficiency, distribution network. It was mentioned, the variance or the pressure, if the water is flowing at different pressures, then it will result in much more leakages through the pipe network as well. Then we need better management practices with respect to reuse, like repurposing of the rainwater, how rainwater can be harvested. These are some of the things which are known, and there are societies which are using this and implementing it as well, but it should be done at a larger level if you want to reduce the blue water footprint. And one of the suggestion which came up was with respect to again metering. Can we have a telescopic metering? We'll be talking more about it in the future questions as well. And closing up with a last comment that how much water do we need, like the demand is different for different practices, whether it's domestic, whether it is agriculture, whether it is industrial, but we need to also try to normalize it with what is the area footprint in which it is being supplied. So with this we'll go to the next question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashwini. I think we had a good start already. I want to put across to this august audience the irony that we are discussing water at the district level and we cannot drink out of the tap, right? So we have a bottle of water next to each other, and I was just checking on this bottle of water. This bottle of water is bottled in Vadebolai, which is downstream of Pune. It is not even upstream. So there is already an inter-basin linkage of rivers happening, with this bottle coming into Pune city and our sewage is being put downstream into that. So one of the reasons why we cannot get good quality of water through the tap is because the PMC or the urban local body barely manages to get the funds required to treat the water properly so that it will be useful to directly drink out of the tap. And therefore the question that we would like to pose here is, do we really know the cost of water? Can we price it better by knowing the cost? And the third question which I would like to add as a rejoinder to this is that what is the value of water? So I would like to open these three things to the audience: cost, price and value. And usually we know, we've already always heard this before, right? If something is given free, there is no value to it because there is ample in abundance, and then if you value something less, then you tend to overuse it, and then you need to talk about efficiency, use, water footprint, so on and so forth. So I would like to put this question to the audience that one is, do we know the real costs of the water that are being served to the citizens of Pune and or any urban local body? Second is there something that we need to work upon in the pricing? And the earlier question we already discussed about volumetric pricing, which is extremely important. And the third is about the value. Is there something that we can do to inform and make aware the real value of good, clean drinking water? Open for discussions.
Thus, can I begin?
Yes, please.
Just a quick point. I don't want to actually go into cost and price, but I'm so happy you brought up the question of value. Incidentally, my name is Himanshu Kulkarni. I'm a student of groundwater. So, Gurudas, you know, I think one of the things we need to remember for Pune is that Pune's water, and especially when we think of the catchment of Pune's water, is perhaps the best water in the world. And I'm saying this for two reasons, and I can actually prove this offline if you want to hear a story from me, but that's for tea time. First and foremost, it's basically water that is precipitated on top of basalt rock, or when it percolates, it's groundwater and basalt. And basalt, by and large, as compared to any other rock types in India, is the most inert rock, which essentially means that your water is of pristine value. I'll close the comment by saying one thing, and this is really linked to what you said earlier. I don't know if many of you know this, but there is a bottling water plant in the catchment of Pune city. And nobody knows this. This is something that I stumbled upon many years ago. This bottling water plant actually made a business of close to, and these are my calculations, of about $15 million in the late 90s, just based on the quality of water that they sourced. This water was sold to the US soldiers who were fighting the Gulf War, and nobody in the neighborhood actually knew this story. If you want to hear more of this story, we'll do it at tea time, but I think we must remember that the value of water that we have is perhaps the highest in the world, or one of the highest in the world. And I think therefore we need to look at how we look at the pricing and costs.
Thanks for that anecdote.
According to me, the water quality supplied by all municipal corporation is excellent. And when I go to hotel, I say, "Sada pani leke aao, bottle ka pani mat le aao," because I have faith in the water supplied by Pune Municipal Corporation and Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation. It's an excellent quality of water. Second, the bottled water is exclusively marketing dump on the Indian people. That's all. It's a marketing. I remember somewhere around 15 to 20 years before it came, and written an article that tomorrow the marketing people will ask us to buy water for bathing. So that's happened, and we have a bottle before us. Secondly, one of the drawback which I feel going to be a big problem tomorrow in water boards. At present, the entire water boards is designed to remove the insoluble solids. That's all. It's sedimentation, filtration, and finally killing the microorganism and making the water non-veg rather than the veg. So that's the technology we have, and as our quality of life is changing, we are adding more and more soluble solids. And at present, we do not have a technology for any water boards to remove these soluble solids. So we have to think for tomorrow, how can we remove the soluble solids from the water? And as you say, the value of water, if you take it right from resource to the tap, is really high, and we pay the money for that very less. That's I feel.
Thank you. I would draw your attention that we are discussing the question of price and cost. So if you would restrict your comments to that, and of course value, that will be great.
Price and cost for what?
Of the water being supplied.
See, whatever water we get from tap or pricing of what?
Yeah, and so we are discussing basically the district level water supply, which is the administrative cost and the consumer price. So there are two aspects to
Not treatment.
Yeah, administrative cost includes treatment. Yeah.
Yeah. So can I just throw some light on it? See, there are a lot of things, scientific things, what we have given to you are not implemented at all. Whatever water you are, whatever we are getting is not of standard. Please remember this thing. Why? Because what we said, it is not scientifically, it is not a potable water. Unless and until there are 40 parameters are there for all types of water. For drinking water also, you have to fulfill those 40 parameters with ISO standard 10,500. Otherwise, this is not a potable water. Scientifically I am saying, just seeing that it is a clear water doesn't mean that it is a potable water. See, what are the factors involved? See, in our raw water itself, we have detected pesticides, heavy metals, raw water in Mula Mota. Are you aware of all this? Please let me know.
So please go ahead. Let's just discuss the
Yeah,
price
whether
of
I
water.
should
Yeah.
go for in details.
No. We are noting down the points, please.
No, whether this is fitting in this thing.
Yeah, as long as it is about the cost of treatment, it is very important. Yeah, yes,
I'm
please.
coming to that. See, about 80% diseases are with water quality. 80% diseases, if they are not fulfilled, you are bound to get 80% type of diseases because of this water. So one has to take care, lot of care, to have all these parameters in. One of the, I am giving a very simple this thing. Now the chlorination of water, drinking water, proved to be very hazardous. Actually, you have to substitute that. You have to have, because in our drinking water we are getting 6 types of carcinogenic compounds with chlorination of water. Are you aware of this? So we have to put a law scientifically that this trialomethanes 60 parts per billion should not be in our drinking water. Whether this thing is published by our corporations, this is the fact that we have to observe this. But nobody is aware about heavy metals, about pesticides. Nothing is given to us.
So thank you so much for that. And
माझी विनंती आहे की 40 पॅरामीटर जे आहे ना ते सगळं सर्किट करायला.
sorry. So I am assuming that what you are suggesting is that the treatment cost should actually be much higher than what they are today if we want to treat all the 40 parameters. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, point noted. Yes.
Gurudas, can I say one thing? As per Article 21, if I am correct, supply of water to a common man is a fundamental right. So we have to really think seriously whether when we price it, what shall be priced. Those who can afford, they can pay, because it's a fundamental right, and Madhya Pradesh they already decided, declare that 55 liters is a fundamental right of the each citizen. So on this issue we have to think and find out how we will do the pricing and the value of the water.
Thank you. Yeah, Shweta.
There are solutions like bioremediation, which are lower cost than actual sewage treatment plants. And it is important to maybe have the water go through first round of that kind of treatment to reduce cost. The other part is because of depletion of groundwater, the water quality is getting worse. If you take the groundwater, like you're getting arsenic, fluoride and things like that, and the cost is going to increase. So one way to keep the cost down is to look at groundwater recharge, right? That is the core essence. I think everybody here would agree with that. So even though it is not technically a pricing issue, but groundwater recharge, rainwater harvesting, all these things are very important for the cost and pricing.
I would like to add what Shweta is mentioning, like as we are saying about the rainwater harvesting are mandatory, at least at PMC. TCMC is still, they are working on the rebate part. So here again, rainwater harvesting has, it's about, though it's a compulsory, but we have seen even not even 25-30% society, they are implementing it and not taking benefit of tax rebate too. So about the cost price, and when we speak about a value, so as Himanshu mentioned, like we have to catch that drop of water, like what is falling, it's very clean, and that water where again we are going to save all this particular prices, or if you think from a water energy in excess from that perspective too. So definitely a focus should be on a rainwater harvesting and shallow aquifers.
Noted.
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts on this. So if you have to draw parallels, okay, with the entire water supply system, there's the energy and electricity distribution, transmission and generation system model which is already available. So if you have to articulate, now there are two differences. One is we are talking about what is it that we are going to price water at and what is the actual cost. So there is definitely a cost of managing the reservoirs. There is a cost of the entire transmission system of water, and there is a cost of the distribution system. Now if we treat it in a manner that this is the cost per capita, cost I am talking about, and the price that you are paying, which today is much lower than the actual cost, it in turn becomes a subsidy that the government is providing. So it may be a good idea to get drill down information as to how much of this expense is going in each stage, the way we know today for electricity, and treat it as a subsidy, so that today me as a consumer, I know that I am getting this for, let's say 100 rupees per 1,000 liters, but the actual cost of this is significantly higher. So there is a moral responsibility that, you know, I manage my water consumption properly. So that could be one model in which, you know, we look at it. So whether we charge that to the consumer or not is a separate question, but having granular information on this is what is the cost is extremely important, and in some way communicating that to the consumer in a manner in which today, you know, electricity is communicated.
Yeah, thanks. Just to bring everybody on the same page again, I would like to say that, you know, PCMC has got 99% water metering, right? So, but unfortunately, PMC has got 3 different types of pricing structures. We have water meters in some areas. We have Pani Patti added to the revenue, and the third is we have completely free water, which is theft. So the question right now is, how do we bring all this on the same page? How do we get PCMC, PMC and the rest of Pune district onto a pricing policy which could probably be easier to manage and more equitable in terms of perception of the customers? Right now what happens is, even when consumers perceive that there is a sense of unfairness in the price, then they are not willing to pay, and then it becomes a politically sensitive subject. So therefore, getting the value communicated in the right manner and then bringing it on to the level of the price is something which we could probably discuss. We still have about 5 minutes.
So, good afternoon. I am Dr. Navindu Chaudhary. I am a professor at Symbiosis Institute of Geoinformatics, and I primarily work with water supply and geographic inequalities within the water supply and distribution. So, one of the challenges we are going to have is that the water supply is not the same kind of supply that similar to electricity. That is that we don't directly supply to the consumer to their home, right? We supply it to the society, and the society then distributes equally to their households. So there are going to be inequalities between two societies based on the number of flats they are going to have, right? For example, our society is only 3-storied. It's an old society with around 25 occupied houses, right? We get the same supply as our next society, which is on the same plot of land, gets the same supply, but it's a redeveloped society with 11 stories where 80 flats are there. So we get ample supply, but they have a water shortage. And because the society is supplied with water and not the every household, the metering will be based again on the society. And if I am getting more water, I will be less inclined to pay price for it. If I am getting short of water, then I may be inclined to pay more. So there will be always a price difference between how much people are willing to pay and how much can you charge. And that will also depend on very contradictory whether we can supply ample or not, right? So if you are dying of thirst, you will pay everything you have for a glass of water. If you have ample amount of water, you want it to be free, right? So we will have to see the inequalities and in distribution in order to determine what the price can be or price points can be. And also we will have to see the socio-economic part of this, because water is essential. So nobody can say, water is too expensive, I won't have any, right? So there has to be some pricing for some people where the cost has to be lower, right? We guarantee food scheme, so we'll also have to guarantee, 80% of the population free water. Essentially we are supplying food for free for 80% of the population now through food guarantees. That is also have a component of water built into it, because that food and water connection is also always there. So at some point we will have to also think of what kind of people we can actually go and charge, and what kind of population or how much of our population has to have this subsidy of water then. That's all.
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing as regards to cost and this price as we are discussing. Just for information of all, there are 23 villages upstream of Khadakwasla which are discharging their waste into Khadakwasla. We did some work on one of the villages, and I see maybe down the line 10 years or 15 years, Khadakwasla will be another Ujni. So that definitely the treatment cost will be increased, is going to be increased. Don't know about the price because it is a political issue, but it is not just sufficient that people like us, we value for water. This valuing water should reach to each and every nook and corner of the society. Thank you.
एक माहिती सांगायची फक्त, शिरपूर नगर परिषदने जेव्हा मीटर सुरू केले ते सगळे पब्लिक टॅप बंद करून टाकले. पाणी घ्यावं लागेल, पैसे द्यावे लागतील. रोडने जायचं आहे, टोल टॅक्स द्यावा लागेल. यू वॉन्ट सर्व्हिस यू हॅव टू पे. त्याच्यामुळे ते आणि हा जो आहे पर लिटर कॉस्ट पाण्याची आणि पर डिस्ट्रीब्युशन आपल्या रेव्हेन्यू पर लिटर याचं जनतेने मांडलं पाहिजे की नेमकी कॉस्ट किती आहे. आता पुण्यामध्ये आपण जे पाणी देतोय याची पर लिटर कॉस्ट किती आहे सगळं कॉस्ट द्यायचं आणि ती पर लिटर काढा आणि पुढे आपण किती चार्ज करतोय पब्लिकला ते काढा. हे लोकांना येऊ द्या, मग लोक याला विरोध नाही करणार.
I had one question.
Prasad, okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it is directly relevant to this topic, but I had one question for the forum. See, we get to hear different views about RO, but there seems to be a lot of wastage because of RO. Good water is getting wasted and going down the drain. So, and also there are some thoughts around it is good for health or not good for health. So, if anybody has any opinions, they may want to share.
I think we'll keep that discussion for a little later. We still have that. Yeah, so Prasad, we can.
Yeah, just a quick comment over here, which might lead to further discussion maybe. I mean, we keep talking about pricing, we keep talking about value as well, but this is essentially inherently linked to equity. Equity and pricing cannot be separated, they cannot be desegregated. Equity in terms of water supply is pegged at 135 liters per person per day, which is it a demand side equity or is it a supply side equity? We have to distinguish between that. So that is the norm which has been set by the national water policy ki 125 liter 135 liters for urban areas and 55 liters per person per day for rural areas. Of course the reasoning is there, but then we have discriminated the human beings in terms of water usage over here. Equity still remains a concern. Are we considering water as a common property resource over here or water as an economic good to define its prices or its pricing based on how much is used or how much is delivered? How much is delivered is not necessarily the same as that is used. Further thing is that whatever is used is not the same as how much is required. So just like you have three different costings, pricing and value, the delivery, the supply, the usage and the requirement would, I mean, they need to be distinguished properly so that we would get into the aspect, more finer aspect of costing, pricing and valuing of water. At the bottom of that is whether, again I repeat, whether we are considering water as a common property resource over here or merely as an economic good. I'll end by saying that agriculture uses far more water as compared to what, or rather agriculture uses far more water than domestic and industrial water put together, and we are not looking at it. So that becomes a corollary over here.
Yeah, thank you. I think we are at the end of discussion time, and
since we talk about economics and see, when we look at solid waste, there's a lot of talk about waste to wealth. In the context of water, we don't hear this term. Whether it is worthwhile to think differently and bring in this particular point to drive innovation or different way of thinking on valuing water and look at the wastewater and then its value.
Was taken to the other extreme. There's a toilet to tap which put off people. So we should not take the pendulum all across. It has to be a balance between the psychology.
Nulkar, one more point.
Just 1 minute. I think he had raised his hand much before. Yes, please.
One point related
Sandesh.
to what Dina mentioned. So when we are talking about pricing, why can't we think of a particular use which has more polluting potential? So maybe some sort of sustainability quotient to use. So for example, if water is used for and it is creating a lot of organic waste which needs lot of treatment, so can't we load it with that while we pricing it?
So I think we'll come back to you. I didn't quite get the point you're making, but there seems to be some interesting thing which you have. But I'll
Sure,
for the sake of
discuss it,
time, I
yeah.
think you had one point, right? I think we'll just very quickly close here.
I had one point. I think for tomorrow or maybe for today, we have a cost of production of water production. Then we must add the cost of wastewater treatment, and that cost A plus B. And as I rightly pointed out, can we have a value addition to that, as Nagpur Municipal Corporation is getting money out of the wastewater? Then the A plus B can be make more economical and acceptable for the people.
Thank you.
आता पोर्टेबल वॉटरची जी कॉस्ट आहे ती 4 to 5 rupees per cubic meter. आणि ट्रीटमेंट ना इवन
खूप जास्त आहे
आहे ना 4 to 5 rupees per cubic meter.
15% देतो
हा 1000 per
Okay.
cubic पण ना म्हणजे 1000 liter.
Thank you so much. I think we've had a quite a good discussion. One of the points I saw coming out is that most of you agreed that cost, price and value are three different things and we need to work upon each one of them to get the right thing. There are a couple of interconnectednesses and interrelationships which come out. One is very importantly equity and price are very closely related, as Prasad said, and we need to look at whether the distribution is equitable or not. The second point is the use and price. What is water being used for and how is it priced for that? And I think if I add my 2 cents to this, we always talk about industrial, agricultural and domestic use. But there's a third aspect which is commercial use, which is not industrial but commercial. And this is a very urban centric approach where businesses thrive just because there is spare water there in that city, right? So is there something that we need to look at the price which is for commercial aspects there? The third very important point came up from Dr. Moge is the real cost of treatment, and when I'm saying real cost of treatment, real potable water delivered to the homes, right? And what is the price to that? But the other part which I inferred from your discussion is what is the hidden cost of water, which is the cost of healthcare, which is never factored into any costing at all. All of us are paying some price to maintain the health which is, you know, degrading due to bad water, and that is not accounted for in any urban local body nor in our personal accounts. We don't look at it as a price we have paid for bad water. So can we integrate that into that? The other thing I saw is the waste to wealth, which I think is extremely important, because as long as fresh water is cheaper than grey water will never be reused. So can we make fresh water to a point that it is cheaper to recycle water for uses which don't require fresh water? So I think we've already had a good set of points which I've collected through this discussion. Yeah.
Publishing the subsidy or making it people know that you are getting water at a, this is the subsidy component. I think it's a very important point in this.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the points which he said, and I've already noted down, is when the cost is greater than the price, then there is a subsidy. And on the other side of the coin is when the cost is less than the price, you have a surplus, and you can, the urban local body can provide for over time. You know what Mr. Savle was saying, that they don't have water possibilities after 2030, right? So you can build that reserve which can create that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Don't miss the point on lowering the cost.
That will
Like we have to make sure we lower the cost, because you can put desal plants, you can do all kinds of stuff, and the cost will go up. We need to keep a real target on making sure the cost is low. I understand.
Yeah, so I would rephrase that saying that not look at lowering the cost, but optimizing the cost to the point that it is drinkable water served to the doorstep, right? So it could be raising the cost, or it could be lowering the cost, and then that should be captured in the price.
Right.
The
But-
difference is between the cost and price today.
But being responsible in terms of groundwater is where I was going with it also.
Yeah, so groundwater is a completely free subject at the moment. We
yeah.
only pay for the electricity to
Yeah.
pump it out, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll take a break till 12 and we'll assemble back. Thank you. Good afternoon all. Before we get into the third, fourth and fifth questions, I just wanted to share a video of Amit Paranspe. Amit is a very dear friend and one of the initial members of PIC. Amit is also very well versed and well read about water as a topic, and he is also a very prolific social media influencer. And Amit couldn't be here today, but I asked him to just share his views over a video. One of the things which I realized, there was so much amount of interesting data points which were coming out in this meeting. If there are any interesting things which you would like to share with a larger public, you know, and Moge sir was just telling me about the 40 parameters, points. Amit would be a very good person. You can share it with him and he could broadcast it so that it creates a larger awareness. So before we go ahead, we'll just play this video.
Thanks, Dina, for inviting me to share some of my brief points. about this whole water security, water distribution issue. My points are specific to the Pune region, but some of them are quite generic. So I'll quickly highlight the key segments that I want to talk about. First is proper distribution of water and elimination of leakages. Today, as all of us know, there's a lot of leakage in the pipelines, in the canal, in the water that Pune city gets from Khadakwasla. Multiple efforts are needed, I think, in that area. One, we need a proper underground tunnel system that has been proposed for a long time, all the way from Khadakwasla to Fursungi, with taps in between to source the water so that we don't utilize the canal for that. Secondly, our pipeline grid system has a lot of leakage points all over the city, and those need to be fixed urgently so that the distribution is correct. And what is needed related to that, so my second segment is water. I noticed that as one of your key points in your discussion, and I think that's important. Water needs to be metered and water needs to be priced. I think that is one of the most important aspects of urban water distribution. Without that, I mean, it's human nature not to utilize it properly, and we end up wasting a lot of it. So water metering and pricing is critical. The third segment that I briefly want to talk about is today a large segment of Pune's water, I don't know the exact percentage, but a good significant percentage is also being met by, I shouldn't say significant, but a non-trivial percentage is being met by groundwater. And again, we don't have any good data, good enforcement about how much groundwater is being used, who's using it, and all of that. And fourth, and I guess the most important point, and something that I've been writing and talking about for now nearly 10-15 years, is the macro allocation issue for Pune city and for the Pune region. I mean, that this is a debate that happens every year in terms of the amount of water in TMC or million meter cube that is allocated by the irrigation department to PMC. Similar issues with PCMC as well from the Pauna Dam. And clearly they end up pumping more. So this debate of whether it's 13 TMC, 14 TMC is allocated and how much is pumped. The reality is Pune region, PMC, PCMC, Pune region has grown significantly in the last 10-15 years, and the growth is going to go on for the next few decades as well. So with that in mind, we need, while we do water saving, smart allocation, we fundamentally need more water sources as well. And we need to revisit some of the urban versus agriculture allocation as well. And some of these can be sensitive issues, but they need to be looked at. And while we can't really generate new water sources, we need to take a hard look at sources like the Mulshi Dam, which again I had written about many years back, and many people, many politicians have talked about it. That's over 500 million meter cube, and that's about I think 18 TMC. So some allocation of that water should be made available to the Pune urban region. The power that is generated from that could be generated from other sources, but water, there is no other source for the Pune region once we have maxed out all the existing dams. So that is a strategic decision that will have to be made by the authorities. Of course, that will involve some compensation and some deal with Tata Power. But that is another issue that needs to be considered at the macro level. So I'll stop at that. Once again, thanks for giving me this opportunity. Thanks.
So welcome back once again, everyone. The third
question we are trying to now understand and go into a little more detail is on water circularity. Essentially, we all have been hearing that water is too precious to be used just once. But how then can we use it the second time or the third time or the fourth time? I think there are a lot of I think there are a lot of technological innovations and technologies which are available and ready. However, when it comes to water and the discussions that we have had since morning, it's clear that it's not a technological problem alone. It's a technology, it's a policy, it's a governance issue which is combined together, which needs to be addressed in a socio-techno-economical context. Now, when it comes to water circularity, what we essentially are looking at is how the wastewater, or rather I would rather call it the used water of a particular city or a region, how it can be looked upon as a water source. So far the traditional water sources have been the surface water, the groundwater. In coastal areas or near to coastal areas, there are also desalination. And the fourth water source, could it be the recycled or the treated wastewater? We were discussing about Singapore, and you mentioned the study at length you have done about Singapore water supplies, and they call it the 4 taps in Singapore. So wastewater recycling is the 4th tap, what they have been using, and they have also actually bottled it and branded it as new water for many years now. So how do we look at water circularity, and how it can be looked upon as a water source for a particular region or a particular city? We can start with at and we should look at the non-consumptive uses first before we move on to the consumptive, because those have different psychological aspects and other aspects associated with. So when we look at the non-consumptive water demand in a city, to what extent and how we can satisfy that using treated wastewater, what technologies, what policies, what governance metrics needs to be, regulation needs to be implemented. I think that is the topic for today for this particular question. Just 1 or 2 anecdotes I would like to share here that will give a sense of the fragmentation on the approach on water circularity that we have across India. In 2016, the Ministry of Power, using the tariff policy of 2016, they mandated that any thermal power plant within a 50-kilometer radius from a municipal corporation or a source of treated wastewater, they should use the treated wastewater from that plant, and there was a revenue model built into that. Nagpur has done it successfully now. They are running it since 6 years now. The 6 other plants are now under discussion in the Ganga basin based on that policy. But now the fragmentation here is that this policy remained on paper only for the Ministry of Power and only for thermal power plants. Why can it not be extrapolated to other process industries? Why restrict it only to thermal power plants? So how we can extrapolate the learnings from one particular policy that has been in place for several years and apply it to a wider base, so as to scale up the use of treated wastewater. This is one aspect. Second aspect, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, there is no dearth of demand, and there is also no dearth of supply. So a typical market for which market has to work, you need a supplier and a consumption or a consumer. So you need a supply and a demand. Fortunately for treated wastewater, both are available for Pune region in terms of the process industry around Pune and the wastewater that is generated within Pune. So you have a supply and you have a demand. Now what we need to work is how do we match these two to create a market for the treated wastewater. And that's the topic for today. So now I'll leave it open to all the experts to debate on this. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. See, basically this water circularity is a well-known fact, and that is also and it is well emphasized at SDG, Sustainable Development Goal under UN. So SDG 6 talking about water and all these related activities. Everywhere we are talking about either 3R, 5R, 7R, 9R or 10R. 3R is very common, that is reduce, recycle and reuse. There are 5Rs, there are 7Rs, there are 10Rs. So in every case we need to consider the first part is decrease. That is, everybody is agreed on that, yes, we need to decrease. Decrease may be consumption, decrease may be production, or decrease may be wastage. So decrease is the first aspect to be considered while considering the circularity. Then the second aspect is related to optimizing. Optimizing may be the available resources, optimizing may be manpower, establishment, funds. So everything needs to be purely optimized for achieving the best output as stated by ABC. It may be UN, it may be Government of India, it may be State Government, Pune or Pimpri-Chinchwad Municipal Corporation. So optimizing at every level is most essential part, and the third is retaining. So we have achieved certain stage, but are we aiming at maintaining the same thing for next n number of years? So retaining in the form of maybe storages, retaining in the form of maybe some physical or infrastructural activities. Otherwise what happens, every now and then whenever there are government schemes sanctioned by Government of India or state government, all urban local bodies, whether it is town, city or municipal corporation, they post their detailed project report for the funding without analyzing their existing infrastructure, whether it is capable of holding the future demand of a number of years. Every urban local body posts their project for 100 crores, 200, 500 crores with Government of India for funding. So effective utilization of your available resources for maintaining the entire infrastructure and how that can be stretched by making some nominal modifications. So all these issues to be considered. So this water circularity must be thought of from this broad perspective. Automatically we can come down to the reduce, recycle, reuse, then replenish. All these issues are associated with it. This is my view on this.
Very good suggestions, and one important point regarding to retaining is earlier what we discussed about skilling. There is a lot of skill gap in operating these wastewater infrastructure systems, and that will be a part of the retaining aspect of it.
सिंगापूरच्या अभ्यासामध्ये माझ्या असं लक्षात आलेलं आहे की एकच पाणी ते 9दा वापरतात. आपल्याकडे आपली तुलना केली तर आपण एक किंवा जास्तीत जास्त 2दा वापरतो. तर हा रियूज किती प्रकारे आपल्याला वाढवता येईल याबद्दल आपल्याला विचार करणं आवश्यक आहे. आता आपण थोड्यापूर्वी आपण नागपूरचं उदाहरण सांगितलं. नागपूर इज सेलिंग वेस्ट वॉटर, ट्रीटेड वेस्ट वॉटर. 200-300 कोटी रुपये त्यांना मिळतात त्या संदर्भामध्ये. दॅट इज अ सोर्स ऑफ इन्कम टू दी कॉर्पोरेशन्स. तर हे तत्व जे आहे हे महाराष्ट्रातल्या सगळ्या कॉर्पोरेशन्सला आपण कंपल्सरी का करू नये, किंवा निदान त्यांनी सोर्सेस तर शोधून काढावे. प्रत्येक गावात बस स्टँड असतो, प्रत्येक गावात रेल्वे स्टेशन असतं, त्या ठिकाणी ते पाणी सहजपणे वापरलं जाऊ शकतं. म्युनिसिपल गार्डन्स असतात, त्या ठिकाणी ते पाणी वापरलं जाऊ शकतं. त्यामुळे हे मॅचिंग जर करण्यात आले योग्य प्रकारे तर त्याला फार मोठा स्कोप आहे आणि त्यामुळे प्युअर वॉटरला एक फार मोठा अल्टरनेटिव्ह आपण शोधून काढू शकू असं मला वाटतं.
We are switching over from linear economy of water to the circular economy of water. I have 4 papers. Those who are interested, I will definitely share with them. Regarding the circularity of the water, I will share one of the model which we have developed. That is a 3-tier system. So we have a residential complex where we supply drinking water separately, utility water separately, and a recycled water. So water that comes out from the bathroom and the kitchen is collected, treated, and given back to the WC flush, gardening and the car wash. Excellent response. At most saved around 30 to 40% of fresh water. I want to share the problem which we face. The problem is that because one of the industry where I am working about the circularity, the question is that the MPCB norms and the norms required for the demand for the particular, suppose A company generating and the B company want, the A company is treating the water and handing over to B. The MPCB says, or pollution control board says, we want the parameter of this one, and they don't require that. Unnecessarily we have to pay the cost. So this is a typical problem when you think about the handing over the wastewater, treated wastewater to another user. So that has to be tackled very carefully because it adds to cost unnecessarily. The second is thing that the quality conscious. Once we have to convince the user that it is not going to damage anything. It's not going to cause any adverse effect. So if we assure a particular quality, then it's very easy to do that. We did it for the couple of the companies and successful.
Just one, I'll just clarify this, elaborate on this point. You have mentioned a very relevant aspect because the regulation of how much, to what extent the wastewater should be treated. There is a lot of confusion now, especially after 2019 revert of NGT order.
Yeah.
So but this is a part of the regulation, and this is exactly the issue where, if you again coming back to the point I mentioned in that Kurkum industrial area wants water, they don't have supply of fresh water. They would like to, they are open to get the treated wastewater or even raw wastewater from the municipal corporations upstream.
Yeah.
But under MPCB and NGT norms they cannot supply.
Yeah.
So how do we disconnect and how do we ensure that these policy gaps are reduced? That has to be harmonized in a way that can enable seamless transfer of water across the supply and demand scenarios. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Yeah, so Shailesh, yeah, so just a related point. So as we discussed, probably supply and demand, we know that where it is, but I feel that as it is a geospatially distributed phenomena, we need to have some sort of a GIS database which is commonly available in public domain. See, why I'm saying it is because then with this probably we can treat it as a global optimization problem, and we can sort of a try assignment algorithms kind of thing where supply and demands are matched with some notional costs associated with that. That's one. And one more important point is that the structure of, see, if we are talking about circularity, when we are saying that, essentially what we mean is that the output of some activity would be used by used as an input by some other activity, right? So in that case, the structure of this database also, common database also would be very important. What it means is that probably the input and output should be characterized well, so that this whole problem can be treated as a matching interface kind of a problem. And then, but essentially the database is extremely important. Having common database which is accessible to public, so that they can work and provide this kind of optimized solution.
One point of view is that if you look at circularity of products like these, there is a producer's responsibility. I think in many countries it is followed too, where if I buy this bottle, there is a way for me to return this bottle back to the producer. In water, because there is no ownership of that as a product, I think this is it is very difficult to understand who will own this responsibility. So if you're looking at a supply demand kind of match, I feel there has to be some ownership. I don't mean when I say ownership of the water, but ownership of the cost in terms of what it's taking to treat. So one example we have seen in some countries are special purpose vehicles or public-private partnerships with governments, where the money may not actually go back to the government, but because there's an SPV, the SPV is able to manage circularity of that water. That means they take responsibility for what happens to the water when it gets treated and are able to do the supply-demand match. And what that also ensures is that the SPV is economically viable. And that keeps the ball then rolling in terms of how they, because there is a clear business model around which that works. So while not ownership of the product, in which case here it's water, I'm saying ownership of who actually takes care of the action with respect to that water might help, I feel, in completing.
You're right. So the Nagpur model is similar to what you have just mentioned. In fact, Dr. Uday Kelkar from NGS was supposed to be here, but last minute he had to travel to Bangalore. He was the architect of designing the system for Nagpur, which is buying sewage from Nagpur Municipal Corporation, treating it and selling it to one Mahajanko and one NTPC plant, Koradi and Khaparkeda. So that is this. They have established a special purpose vehicle which purchases water from Nagpur Municipal Corporation and sells it to that. But that's the model which is the right model which you highlighted.
मला एक थोडंसं बोलायचं आहे. नागपूरचं तुम्ही सांगताय तसं मी तुम्हाला सुरतचं एक्झाम्पल सांगेन. सुरतमध्ये टेक्स्टाईल इंडस्ट्री खूप आहे आणि सुरत सिटीला रोजचा पाणी पुरवठा जवळपास 1250 MLD होतं आणि तिकडे ते 140 MLD पाणी जे आहे ते टर्शरी ट्रीटमेंट करतात आणि ते टेक्स्टाईल इंडस्ट्रीला देतात. तर त्यांच्याकडे तो मोठ्या प्रमाणावर कंझ्युमर आहेत. सुरतनी जवळपास 1400 कोटी रुपये खर्च करून 140 MLD पाणी टर्शरी ट्रीट केलेलं आहे सिवेजचं, वेस्ट वॉटर. मग तिथे त्यांना तो जो काही ग्राहक आहे तो मिळाला आहे आणि त्यांचं जे काही ॲग्रीमेंट आहे त्याप्रमाणे ते दरवर्षी त्यांचे जे रेट आहेत ते तुमच्या RBI इंडायसेसला क्लब केलेले आहेत. त्यांनी सुरुवात केली होती 13 रुपये युनिटनी, म्हणजे 1000 लिटरला, आणि आज ते पोहोचलेले आहेत. 2 वर्षापूर्वी मी व्हिजिट केली होती, त्यावेळी त्यांचा रेट 39 रुपीज पर किलो लिटर होता. ही इकॉनॉमिकली व्हायबल असेल तर हे सर्क्युलर वॉटरची जी काही संकल्पना आहे ती आपल्याला राबवता येऊ शकते. दुसरं म्हणजे हे त्यांनी ते जे ट्रीट केलेलं पाणी आहे ते RO सिस्टीमनी फायनल ट्रीट होतं आणि पोटेबल आहे, पण त्याच्यामध्ये जे रिक्वायर्ड मिनरल्स आहेत आपल्याला पोटेबिलिटीचे ते मात्र राहत नाहीत RO सिस्टीममुळे. तर ते पोटेबल असलं तरी ते पुरवत नाहीत सिटीला लोकांना डोमेस्टिक पर्पजसाठी, पण त्यांना कंझ्युमर आहे टेक्स्टाईल इंडस्ट्रीचा ज्यांना पाणी जास्त लागतं. अशा केसेस आम्हाला तरी पिंपरी चिंचवडमध्ये नाही आहेत. आमच्याकडे आज 600 MLD पाणी पुरवतो आम्ही. 80% वेस्ट जरी कन्सिडर केलं तरी ते 480 MLD होईल. त्यातून 60% आपण टर्शरी ट्रीटमेंट करून देऊ शकतो, पण तेवढा कंझ्युमर आमच्याकडे नाही आहे आणि त्याचं जी काही कॉस्ट येते पर किलो लिटरची ती अशी 40 रुपये 42 रुपये येते. तर त्यांनी कन्झम्पशन करणारं कोणी आपल्याकडे उपलब्ध नसल्यामुळे आपण हे करायचं ठरवलं तरी पुण्यात ते निदान पिंपरी चिंचवडला तरी पॉसिबल नाही.
सो तोच विषय
हा जो मुद्दा आहे की कॉस्ट इन्व्हॉल्ड इन ट्रीटमेंट, म्हणजे त्याची कॅपिटल इन्व्हेस्टमेंट आहे, O&M आहे आणि पुन्हा सप्लाय डिस्ट्रीब्युशन नेटवर्क आहे. तर हे थोडंसं इकॉनॉमिकली व्हायबल होत नाही जोपर्यंत त्याच्या रेटला कोणी कंझ्युमर तयार होत नाही.
करेक्ट. So Kurkum मध्ये process industry could be one of the demand centers for this, but the transmission cost हे आपल्याला बघायला पाहिजे त्याची.
कुरकुम पुण्यापासून किंवा पिंपरी चिंचवड पासून आपण पाहिलं तर ते जवळपास 60-70 किलोमीटरच्या अंतरावरती आहे. तर तेवढं पाणी तुम्हाला डाऊनस्ट्रीम जरी असलं नदीचं तरी तसं ते थ्रू पाईपलाईन बाय ग्रॅव्हिटी जाणार नाही. आपण ते पंपिंग करायला लागेल, म्हणजे पंपिंगची कॉस्ट पुन्हा यूज जाईल.
करेक्ट करेक्ट.
ह्याच्याच अनुषंगाने जसं सवणे सर आता म्हणत होते त्याप्रमाणे की PCMC इन आयसोलेशन त्यांचे एक स्वतःचे कॅल्क्युलेशन्स आहेत, पुणे कॉर्पोरेशनचे आहेत, MIDCचे वेगळे. देर इज नो प्रॉपर बॉन्डेज ऑर लिंकेजेस बिटवीन डिफरंट अथॉरिटीज वर्किंग इन द रिजन फॉर water uses. So we need to work out the water balance analysis of the region, what is the demand of different sectors and what is the production available, how that can be efficiently managed in the region. कारण आज PCMC मध्ये जरी 400 किंवा 350 ml वेस्ट वॉटर अवेलेबल होऊ शकतं आफ्टर टर्शरी ट्रीटमेंट, हाऊ दॅट कॅन बी सप्लाइड टू एरिया लाईक कुरकुम. सो मेकॅनिझम, कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव्हनेस, देन इफिशियन्सी ऑफ द एंटायर सिस्टम अँड कॉस्ट पर किलोलीटर. So हा जो interlinkages of different authorities and their cooperation and coordination for the policy making is one of the missing link what we observed in last 25-30 years.
एक पॉइंट ऍड करायचा होता. माझ्या कल्पनेप्रमाणे पुणे म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशननी असं कबूल केलेलं आहे की ट्रीट करून पाणी आम्ही फार्मर्सला देऊ, इरिगेशनला देऊ. मला वाटतं बाय 2025 समथिंग, मला एक्झॅक्टली आठवत नाहीये. ऑलरेडी चितळे सरांनी लिहून ठेवल्याप्रमाणे तुम्हाला रेडीमेड युजर आहे, तुमचे फार्मर्स आहे डाऊनस्ट्रीम. म्हणजे हे मला आश्चर्य वाटतं की आपल्याला युजर नाही कसं काय म्हणतो आपण, जेव्हा अग्रीमेंटच केलंय की आम्ही पाणी ट्रीट करून त्यांना देणार आहोत.
युजर इन द सेन्स आपण फक्त इथल्या इंडस्ट्री बद्दल बोललो. ऍग्रिकल्चरला एनी हाऊ आता सेकंडरी ट्रीट केलेलं पाणी जे आपण MPCB नॉर्म प्रमाणे ट्रीट करतो ते नदीमध्ये जाताना खाली ते फार्मरलाच मिळतं. पुण्याला जे रेस्ट्रिक्शन आहे 500 ml पाणी ते कॅनॉलमध्ये डायरेक्ट द्यायचं आहे. NRBCचा जो राईट बँक कॅनॉल आहे त्याच्यामध्ये त्यांना डिलिव्हर करायचं आहे. आय थिंक तुमच्या खालचा तो कुठला कोलवाला नाला, कोळकी नाल्यामध्ये ते तिथं जे कॅनॉल आहे त्याच्यामध्ये ते हल्ली ट्रीट करून काहीतरी 200-250 ml पाणी सोडतायत. तर 500 ml त्यांचं जे काही चितळे सरांचा रिपोर्ट आहे त्याच्यानुसार करायचंय. त्याच्याबद्दल त्यांचे STPचं वर्किंग वगैरे चालू आहे. ते डेव्हलप झालं वर्किंग, ते सुरू झाले STPs तर ते 500 ml ला पोहोचून जातील.
थँक्यू. एक लास्ट आपण घेऊया टाइम. खुर्जेकर सर.
माझा फक्त प्रश्न एवढाच आहे की तुम्ही सगळी लोक जे काही सांगताय ते बरेचसे प्रयोग काही चालू आहेत, काही अपूर्ण आहेत, इथपर्यंत ठीक आहे. पण ती जी ट्रीटमेंट आहे त्याच्या टेक्नॉलॉजीविषयी आपल्यापैकी ज्या लोकांना माहिती आहे त्यांचा एक ग्रुप असला पाहिजे. आणि मग ह्यापैकी कोणीतरी पॉईंट रेज केला होता की कॉस्ट किती आहे, तर ती इव्हॅल्युएट करणं सोपं होईल असं मला वाटलं, म्हणून मी मुद्दा फक्त रेज केलेला आहे. जे लोक याविषयी ज्ञानी आहेत किंवा नागपूरचे कोणीतरी एक्सपर्ट आहेत, मला माहित नाही इथे आहेत का नाही ते, जर त्यांना माहिती असेल तर त्यांच्याकडनं आपण समजून घेऊ आणि एक टेक्नॉलॉजी म्हणून त्याच्यावरती विचार करून मग काय मॉडिफाय करायचंय, किंवा मोघे सरांसारख्या एक्सपर्टकडनं सुद्धा आपण माहिती घेऊ शकतो की हे ट्रीट केलेलं पाणी आणि त्याच्यात काय बदल करायचा आहे, कुठे ते वापरायचं आहे, याचाही विचार करता येईल. म्हणजे ती टेक्नॉलॉजीचं ऍडिशन होऊ शकेल. हा फक्त मुद्दा आहे माझा, बाकीच्या मुद्द्यावरती मी काही सांगत नाहीये.
नागपूर आणि सुरतची केस अशीच आहे की तिथे त्यांना तो कन्झ्युमर आहे. नागपूरला जसं महाजनको किंवा इंडस्ट्रीचं प्रोसेसिंग युनिट आहे म्हणून त्यांनी तो प्रयोग तिथे केला आणि तो त्यांना इकॉनॉमिकली व्हायबल झाला. सुरतलाही तीच केस आहे. अशी केस पुण्यात मला तरी सापडत नाहीये म्हणून मी तुमच्यासमोर.
लास्ट वन. येस,
पुण्यामध्ये अशी केस आहे. कन्झ्युमर्स हे ऍग्रिकल्चरल कन्झ्युमर्स देखील आहेत, परंतु गंमत अशी असते की करकुमला पाणी देताना ते आपण ट्रीट करून द्यायचं तेव्हा ते रेग्युलेटरी अथॉरिटी मान्य करते. वाघोलीतनं पाणी उचलून पुरंदर उपसा सिंचन योजनेमधून पुरंदर मधल्या 23 गावांमध्ये जेव्हा ते दिलं जातं तेव्हा ते पाणी हे प्रत्यक्ष स्वतः ते दिलं जाणारं पाणीच पोल्युटेड असतं असं नाही, तर ते पाणी जेव्हा शेतांमध्ये सोडलं जातं तेव्हा ते ग्राउंड वॉटर देखील कॉन्टॅमिनेट करत असतं. म्हणजे हे या पाण्याची क्वालिटी when we check the quality of this water at the point of use, the microbial contamination which as per the WHO norms, Muge sir, should be 0 fecal coliforms ppm. So it was 23 colonies were there. म्हणजे 0 पाहिजे असतं तर 23 colonies were there. ते that is what is happening. So असं पाणी दिलं जातं, ऑलरेडी दिलं जात आहे, ते कन्झ्युमर्स आहेत आणि they are paying a huge what we can call as opportunity cost for using this kind of water for agriculture. Circularity मध्ये जसं इंडस्ट्रियल यूज आहे तसंच sustainable agriculture systems also is one of the aspect of water circularity which we have completely overlooked over here. I'll talk more about that, but आता say संपलेलं आहे later maybe.
In the interest of time, I'll summarize this question's observations and then we'll move on to the next question. So we spoke about first of all decreasing. So the idea here is how we can look upon treated wastewater as a water source for various applications, industry, agriculture and others, non-consumptive. So first is we need to decrease usage, then optimize the infrastructure and also retaining of that infrastructure, whatever we have built. Then we spoke about mapping sources of wastewater. Sir, आणि म्हणलं की bus stops आहेत किंवा काय, so mapping sources कुठे कुठे available आहेत at scale, then segregate those into the quantum of water wastewater that is available. We spoke about regulation issues, MPCB, NGT, CPCB, NGT तफावत आहे ती, how do we bridge that gap and try to come across a common platform. GIS database, whether we can use it for mapping of supplies for wastewater. Then Priya mentioned about treatment ownership for special through a special purpose vehicle. सावणे सरांनी म्हटलं असं की सुरतचं उदाहरण आहे की ते RBI इंडेक्सशी लिंक्ड असं. सो हे projects which are they are going through a special purpose vehicle, can there be a pricing certainty through by indexing it to a cost linked to the cost of inflation what RBI is printing, and along with that the mapping also of the demand. So mapping supply is one thing, but mapping demand sources or demand points for treated wastewater is also important. We spoke about technology cost and technology appropriateness, and one very important aspect is we speak a lot with the Divisional Commissioner Office that the second and third tier cities, they face a lot of problem with choosing the technology, because unfortunately a lot of the companies, they try to push their own technology and some of those technologies may not be usable for the budgets considering for what they have for, let's say, tier 3 or tier 4 cities. Then for such type of budget constraints, what are the right technologies? Can we go for bioremediation or nature-based technologies or something like that? That needs to be looked at for circularity. And finally, sustainable agriculture is also a big demand point for circularity, which needs to be formalized or internalized, and the opportunity cost that they are already paying for it, how it can be captured. So it was a very enthralling, enthralling input. So with that, I'll move on to the next question, which is on governance model. So again, in the opening remarks, we discussed that the ecological boundary or the natural boundary of the watershed, which is in this particular region, Pune region, and the administrative boundaries are two very different things. Constitutionally, water is a state subject, so state is supposed to govern the water supply, wastewater, everything. The irrigation department, water resource department, and the regulatory authority, MWRRA, they are mandated with these aspects, and the distribution aspects are left with the urban local bodies. Within Pune, if you see in the same watershed, which is, let's say we are in the upper Bhima region, so the upper Bhima watershed over the catchment areas, we have almost two large municipal corporations, Pune, Pimpri Chinchwad. We have the larger region of Pune Metropolitan Region PMOID, which was established in 2016 on. And then you have the Gram Panchayats, you have the municipal councils, which are again, some are within PMR, some are outside PMR. But essentially all of them take water, or their source of water is from the same catchment. And the discharge point, the treated water or the wastewater that is generated is also discharged in the same point, which is in the Bhima River. Now, the current governance model, that state controlling the supply and the regulation, and the distribution and treatment left with the municipal corporations, whether that is a right model or whether there need to be some kind of a review and innovation in the governance and the regulatory model, that is the topic for the fourth question here. To just give you one example before we start the discussion, is within India, a lot of the large cities, they have evolved, which have evolved over time. They have their own governance model. For example, the city of Chennai, although the administrative boundary is Chennai, the Chennai Metropolitan Water Supply and Sewerage Board, CMWSSB, they are responsible for the water supply and wastewater treatment for the larger metropolitan region, and it's a separate body reporting to the municipal commissioner. They are not within the municipal corporation itself, a separate statutory body established by the state government to oversee the total water supply and wastewater treatment. So especially the larger parts of northern and southern Chennai, Ennore region and South Tambaram region, Audi region, which are recently, which are not in the municipal limits, municipal corporation limits of Chennai, they are under the purview of Chennai Metropolitan Sewerage Board. The east side now going towards Sri Perambur, the Gunnipudi area is also now a part of Chennai Metropolitan region. All these areas are not within the jurisdiction of the municipal corporation. So the Metropolitan Water Board is responsible for the water supply and wastewater, and being a single entity, there are a lot of benefits associated with doing that. Now whether this kind of a structure is feasible for this region, Pune Metropolitan region, and how it can be done, and what are the thoughts, that's the topic for the fourth question. So I leave it open to Himanshu sir. Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of prepared a bit for this, and I'm just going to list out about 7 or 8 points. I won't go into the details. If necessary, we can come back to that. So I think the first point is really about demarcation, protection, and restoration of local water bodies. And when we talk of local water bodies, we actually look at these local water bodies in their physical entities. There is something called functional parts of these local water bodies. And I think for Pune, for example, we have actually identified something like 55 small and large in-house watersheds. And I think if you look at these functional water bodies, there's very little in terms of how we protect them, how we restore them in terms of our operational framework and governance framework. So that's the first point. The second point, and I'm not going to list out what I'm going to say, it's just about the concept of blue-green infrastructure in the overall built space in urban areas. But I think that can also transcend to the rural areas. The third is something that I've been talking to Gurdas about, is in terms of how do we look at ecosystem and ecosystem services in terms of water. And especially when we look at, say, something like the Upper Bhima, do we really have a policy framework on ecosystem and ecosystem water? At the moment, that answer is no. Fourth, management and governance of aquifers. I think a lot of people alluded to groundwater. We have actually done one of the most systematic and detailed study of urban aquifers. I mean, we do as a part of Aquadam, we actually map aquifers in every single location that we look at. But in the PMC area, and now we are actually working very closely with PCMC on also doing the same thing, on developing an entire strategy of urban groundwater management, including recharge, demand management, and so on and so forth. And I think if you are interested, I'll share that report with you also. So that's the fourth one. 3 hours, I mean 3 hours, 7 hours, 9 hours, I think one of the integral components of these hours is recharge. And I think recharge, unfortunately in India, recharge, हिंदी में बात करता हूँ, recharge का मतलब ये है कि पानी जमीन के अंदर ठूस ठूस के भरो. That's not what recharge is. I think there's a concept of internationally recognized concept called managed aquifer recharge. And I think bringing managed aquifer recharge to the urban context will actually add a very efficient 3rd, 4th, 10th hour to what we are looking at in terms of the many hours. 6th is technology, and one of the issues here is how do we actually bring in technology in policy and governance, especially with regard to FSSTPs. You know, that, I mean, just an example. 7th, distribution. I think a lot of people talked about distribution and bringing in equity into distribution, perhaps over and above the efficiency in distribution. I think equity is also a big, I think that's the cat to bell in the water management at the district level. 2 more points. And like somebody said that you speak from the heart, so I will keep the heart point as point number 9. Point number 8, capacities in water management. I think we simply don't have transdisciplinary capacities to think of policy and governance. especially at the river basin scale. So how do we bring capacities in water management? I mean, largely when we discuss things today, we are talking of capacities in engineering and technology. Most of the focus today is on engineering and technology. But if you have to address questions on ecosystems, on efficiency, on equity, I think we need somewhat different capacities. How we bring those in could also be a mandate on the governance and regulatory framework. Speaking from the heart, now I think whether we like it or not, we are going to get a lot of private sector indulgence in water. I'm talking of indulgence. Whether it's good, bad, ugly, we can debate, but it's there for us to see. The demon that faces us with private sector is private sector is likely to lead to privatization of water. I think governments and policy should make sure that privatization of water doesn't happen, because water is a public good. In a country like India, at least for the next few years, we should retain it as public good, and I think nowhere in the world is it different. I mean, if you look at the Singapore model, finally, what is the Singapore model? They are looking at water as a public good, and I think that is something that should be retained. That should be the underlying statement or purpose in any policy and governance that we develop. So I'll stop here. We can come to some of these points as the discussion proceeds.
Thank you. One aspect I would also like to add, which Himanshu sir touched upon, is the river basin management approach. If you see the Ganga basin, for example, in the 80s they started with the Ganga action plan to treat or clean Ganga. Similarly, you had the Yamuna action plan, but the results were dismal, to say the least, because they looked at the river as a single entity. But since 2016 now, the National Mission for Clean Ganga has been established as a regulatory body to look at the river basin as a whole, including all its tributaries and its total drainage area. I would like to just mention here that similar to the Ganga Basin Management Plan, the central government has now started work on 6 other river basins in India. Krishna is one of them. But this aspect, what Himanshu sir is very critical, that the governance has to be at the basin level of the river. When I say governance, it includes the policies, the supply management, the demand management, everything has to happen at the basin level. Now, there are again issues with regards to the trans-boundary waters within states. We see what is happening with Kaveri River. But at least whatever is the river basin within that particular state, that should be governed by a single authority. That is what Namami Gange is seeing, and we are seeing some of good results based on that. Just I want to add to what Himanshu sir said.
To add to that, we also think of the riparian zone around it. The riparian zone around, yeah.
So,
yes, please.
So I would like to add, like what PMC has done. Like last 7 years, we are working on groundwater, especially working with governance. And we had PMC. We have a groundwater cell. It is the first groundwater cell of India's, and there we have each and every stakeholder of various institutions, including CREDAI and all, where we just frame up, like, whatever the problems are related to water, like what we were speaking about, whether it's the MPCB norms or CWB or so on and so forth. So your every stakeholder are there, and what problems are, wherever there are the gaps. So it's been filled with this, bridges. So 2 years like this groundwater cell has been functioning, and the first month it was like this, like I would like to share, I don't know how much relevant it is for this particular group, but water department was saying, it's none of our business, groundwater is not our business. And now today each and every department of PMC and other stakeholders, very actively they are a part of this groundwater cell, and they want the, even in DP cell, they want which area has to be reserved, or road department asking, which area has to be reserved for recharge, or which areas are discharged and as per the watershed. So coming down to this similar thing we should have in every institutions, where it's a MIDC, any kind of industries. This has to be there where every stakeholder has to be there, and they should know what aquifers are they are sitting on to, just like on what aquifers this NCCR building is been built up. And same goes for many other things. So as per the governance, what we are talking about, what model one has to apply. So every industry should have this kind of committees or cell that has to be active with the SOPs and guidelines. That's it.
So essentially what you're saying is the groundwater approach has to be internalized in the government's model of every corporation.
सॉरी माझं झालं 1-2 मिनिटामध्ये. सी गव्हर्नन्स हा जो मॉडेलचा विचार आपण करतोय त्याच वेळेला वी नीड टू थिंक ऑफ द टोटल वॉटर स्टोरेज अवेलेबल इन पुणे रिजन अंडर दिस बेसिन मॅनेजमेंट. सो देर आर सम 13 मेजर अँड मायनर डॅम्स अँड स्टोरेज अवेलेबल, सम 6 medium and 16 small. So the total storage in TMC available in the region, it should be correlated with the development potential of the region under PMRDA for 7,000 square kilometer area. If you leave Pune and Pimpri-Chinchwad aside, the balance area is 6,200 square kilometer. So there must be a concrete development plan for water infrastructure for next 30 years or 20 years, which will cater to the available resources on one side, and it has to be linked with the water replenishment and the wastewater and water recycle, entire water recycle scenario, the total water economy in totality. There you can restrict certain, impose certain restrictions on the development like NCR. So there should be a proper guideline by PMR for urban, peri-urban, semi-urban, then rural and all those areas. So the development potential will have its upper limit for next 30 years. Even after 30 years, we should keep some buffer for another 30 years thereafter, because all the sources are restricted towards the western side of this region. And whenever we are working as a master planners for this entire region, we are facing the problem how to bring the entire source. In between there are two major towns. So transferring water from western side to eastern side for our master plan, there is another critical issue. Land acquisition is another issue. So it should be interlinked with all these activities.
I want to add two important things. The water governance must include the water resources, water treatment, water supply, water distribution. Second, the sewage collection, sewage treatment, sewage reuse and disposal. And third, which is more neglected all over India, is stormwater collection and treatment. And this totality of then become a perfect water governance. One more thing which may not like, I will tell you the story about that. I was in one of the conferences in Hyderabad, and one of the chief engineer presented that he is getting the water 125 kilometers away to supply water to the Hyderabad people. I said, why not you put a limit to growth of Hyderabad? That this is the water available, this is the population, and you can't go more than that. Of course, it's difficult to think in the present scenario. So can we promote the concept of limit to growth? This is the water available, I can't have more than this population, then it is the real water governance. Of course, the second point is difficult to digest.
Add to what Saraf sir has mentioned, like when we know there is a 1 BHK flat only 5 people can accommodate or 4 people can accommodate, and we are trying to accommodate 30 people in that particular room. So just all your totally your budget get collapsed. Same is happening with the city, and the migration is tremendous, and it's going to happen more. So what policy, right from offset perspective, whether it's a climate offset or number of other offsets, what we can have for reverse migration? So this also we should think about, because water is limited, and again we can store in a various form, but we have to think about reverse migration and how we can strengthen that.
And in Chennai the growth is horizontal, in Pune is vertical. And let me tell you, in Powder Road, all buildings are getting converted to multi-story. Earlier I used to have a 24-hour water supply, hardly get a 1-hour supply now. That's happening. So our population density is going up, and nobody is there to control.
So defining the carrying limits of that particular region, carrying capacity, defining those limits, and then probably incentives or other disincentives for depending on those carrying limits.
Just one point, we've not talked that climate related aspect. So we always look at water which is coming in, especially during storms and things like that, as a problem. Have we looked at it as an opportunity? So it may be worthwhile to think in that direction, and whether there are certain things, because only when something like this happens, it's treated as a disaster and everybody goes into managing that disaster. But there is so much of water which gets assimilated. Is there an opportunity to use that and has some governance policies around that?
Climate change resilience. Yeah, climate change resilience.
So one of the things is, in the United States, they have got what are called as detention and retention tanks, which are exactly used for these purposes. When there is an inordinate event of a flood, then these detention tanks are put to use. Yes. Yeah.
So I'll just like to quickly highlight here that at Pune Knowledge Cluster, when we came up with a concept that should there be a water plan or an action plan for Pune region, and we had a similar roundtable 2.5 years back. The concept which we came up with was actually a river basin landscape approach, where ridge to valley approach is followed, and where we look at all these parameters right from availability to usage to demand and many more facets to the same thing. And it was also where we looked upon what is the land use, land cover change, how is it happening over a period of time. And like Siddharth pointed out, an important thing over there was also discussed is the governance, because the corporation boundaries are different, the river basin boundaries are different. So even if you have a plan for a larger river basin, which we thought there should be, how do you put out as an actionable for each ULB, because every ULB will restrict to what is in their jurisdiction itself. And there also the point was about, can we estimate carrying capacity for that river basin also, which also, like Himanshu pointed out, we don't have those estimates.
So I think in the interest of time, I'll summarize this question, then Deena will take over. So we spoke so regarding water governance issues, we spoke about, Himanshu sir mentioned about the functional part, the demarcation protection of water bodies is very important. The green blue infra, how to look at the ecosystem services offered by the water bodies, management and governance of aquifers, managed aquifer recharge, the technology options associated with that, equity in distribution, capacity building in the system for the water value chain across different aspects, supply, transmission, distribution, demand, and how to ensure that it remains a public good. Correct, Himanshu sir? The last one was from your heart. Yeah. Then we spoke about the same protection for riparian zones as well. How groundwater should be an internalized approach for water management by the municipal corporations themselves. Pathak sir mentioned about water budget. How do we look at the water storage availability across the small, medium, large dams across Pune, the groundwater aquifers, and creating a water budget based on the supply scenario, and based on that, guidelines whether the state government can give in terms of defining the carrying capacity, defining the carrying limits, putting in restrictions for development in certain areas, incentives / disincentives for reverse migration. We spoke about that. How stormwater collection system can help in climate resilience. Instead of looking at a disaster, how can we look at an opportunity? The Houston model, detention and retention model. And finally, the holistic approach for water governance, considering the ecological boundaries and the administrative boundaries. So we'll summarize all this later based on the inputs. And now I hand over to Deena. Thank you.
Thank you, Siddharth. I need to get back to the topic of science, technology, and innovation ecosystem. So the fifth question, as you would see, what are the opportunities for introducing smartness and technology for better decision making in the water sector? That's the question. And I just looked at all the discussions that are happening. And one of the key things is around data. Making data available to the public, making data available as open data, collecting of data, analyzing that data. So there's a lot of data science and related stuff which is a huge potential, and especially this data is very, very specific to that region. So it has to be mass customized for that particular region. So you can't generalize it. It has to be done in context. So that's one very important area. The second one which we picked up during the discussions was around measurement science. So anything which you are talking about, be it the production, the distribution, the all the entire supply chain of water, and the measurement and sensors that are required, various digital solutions which can be put in place. And there is one of the things which I realize is so much of parallel things which are happening, which in some other industry or some other domain can be brought in. So there's an opportunity over here. There is a lot of deep tech opportunities, and best thing is, we have something like a venture center in Pune, which is doing some amazing work. And I'm sure there are many of you who have done, deep research in each of those areas. There is tremendous amount of opportunities for focus on research as such. I did mention at the opening about space technology, and it is definitely an area where ISRO is actually opening up a lot of their data sets for usage. And we in fact had a call earlier this week where 2 ISRO scientists were telling us about the possibilities and potential. One area which I picked up from Sir, he was talking about having written many books, almost 20 odd books written on awareness. But are we using technology to propagate that awareness? This is the world of digital where everybody learns from reels. So I was actually talking to Sir that whether we can, since it is his IP, whether we can convert that into digital and use awareness sessions using technologies. And obviously, we have social media influencers like Amit Paranjpe who can actually amplify. Moge Sir was talking about different data points which probably I am not even aware of, whether we can run a awareness campaign using technology. And there is other thing which is changing behavior. Today, a lot of things get, we use a lot of things to push selling, through advertisements and things like that. Whether there are technologies which can potentially change behavior through the billing mechanism, through various social media content. So I've just laid down these topics for discussion. There is enough which can be done. And obviously we have some of the academicians out here, whether there are opportunities to look at treating this as a topic, as a center of excellence, as a purpose that the institutions can potentially focus on, and then look at solving problems related to that. So I'll open up for discussions. Yeah.
So in terms of, you started off with satellite data. There is organizations like OMSAT. It's a new organization which does satellite imaging for groundwater, which typically is not thought of in the past. But if you look at CGWB, they have maps which are on paper as well. So how do we bridge that gap? Because there is technology available and there's data available. And question is, do we need to go back and look at those old paper data or just look at the new stuff? Again, on the same lines, in terms of floodplains, we need to go and look at historical floodplains to identify what is encroached upon. Some of these issues which you're talking about, floods and those things, that's where we need to leverage the data, bring out the floodplain old data, and then see what the impact is going to be longer term in terms of groundwater or recharge or any of that. Additionally, we have basic data like rainfall, which we don't use enough, and we don't have access. So ownership of data is going to be a big point. That's what we struggle with most of the time. The other part is learning how to use that data, learning digital geography. Like, people now use Google Maps very comfortably. How we can take them a step further and learn GIS. Like, everybody should have access. We have huge GIS technology. How does every student gets access, and every school and education system include these things, and how to interpret the data? It's one thing using the tool, other thing interpreting data and understanding it. So, I think those were some of the points in terms of data.
Can I make a...
Hello? As this is related to research and earlier was technology, so I would just like to put a couple of things. Like, there is no dearth of technologies when it comes to wastewater treatment. But if you see the technologies available today, most of them, they are influenced by the developed countries. And there is tremendous scope for using the traditional wisdom. I will give you just one example. Many of us sitting here, particularly the seniors, you might be knowing about Appa Patwardhan. He was the महात्मा गांधींचे अनुयायी होते. 1946 साली त्यांनी बायोगॅस प्लांट बांधलेला आहे. किंवा त्यांच्या इथे सोपा संडास म्हणून जो आहे, तुमच्यापैकी जर कोणी कणकवलीला गेला असेल तर तिथे, आणि तीच टेक्नॉलॉजी आज दुसरीकडनं जर्मन टेक्नॉलॉजी म्हणून आपल्याकडे आली, आपण त्याचा उदो उदो करतो. तर हे कुठेतरी आपण आपल्या ट्रॅडिशनल विजडमवर फोकस केलं पाहिजे, विच शुड बी अ पार्ट ऑफ द टेक्नॉलॉजी. ॲज आय मेन्शन, आय एम ऑल्सो रिप्रेझेंटिंग आप्पा पटवर्धन सफाई व पर्यावरण तंत्रनिकेतन. ही माझे आमचे जे गुरु आहेत पर्यावरणातले डॉक्टर मापुसकर, त्यांनी स्थापलेली संस्था आहे. त्यांनी त्या आप्पा पटवर्धनांच्या नावाने ही संस्था स्थापली आहे. आणि डॉक्टर मापुसकर हे स्वतः MBBS होते, MBBS डॉक्टर, बट ही हॅज डेव्हलप हिज ओन बायोगॅस प्लांट. तो बायोगॅस प्लांट ह्युमन एक्सक्रिटा बेस्ड डायजेस्टर आहे. त्याचे डिटेल्स कोणाला हवे असतील तर मी नंतर शेअर करीन. पण थोडक्यात त्याच्याबद्दल सांगायचं तर 30-35 वर्ष ते प्लांट ऑलरेडी चालू आहेत देहूगावासारख्या गावामध्ये. तर मग त्याला काही सस्टेनेबिलिटीचा वेगळा स्टडीची गरज नाही. बट स्टील वी हॅव कॅरीड आउट ॲज अ अकॅडमिक इंटरेस्ट, वी हॅव कॅरीड आउट LCA and LCCA for these technology and the technologies available today in the market. And the technology which he has developed, DOSIMAM, it is far better in terms of sustainability, economics, everything as compared to the technologies available here. तर मुलांना या टेक्नॉलॉजीज बद्दल माहिती होणं आणि ट्रॅडिशनल विजडम वापरलं जाणं हे खूप आवश्यक आहे. तर या फोरमच्या थ्रू अजून एक लास्टच पॉईंट फक्त सांगतो. जसं कन्स्ट्रो एक्झिबिशन झालं, म्हणजे आता इथे आपले बरेच सिव्हिल इंजिनियर पण आहेत, तर कन्स्ट्रो एक्झिबिशन हे जसं एक मोठं एक्झिबिशन आहे, तिथे ते मुलांकरता कॉम्पिटिशन्स घेतात. तर आपल्या एन्व्हायरमेंट फोरम करता, या फोरम करता जर असं एखादं आपण एक्सक्लुझिव्हली एक्झिबिशन आणि त्यात मुलांचे रिसर्च रिलेटेड टू वॉटर, वेस्ट वॉटर आणि इकॉनॉमिक्स जर आपण डिस्प्ले करू शकलो तर आय थिंक इट विल बी अ गुड प्लॅटफॉर्म टू शोकेस देअर वर्क. थँक्यू.
मला
Yeah. So talking about specifically about technologies available in terms of bringing in granular visibility from a demand side, there are, I mean, we have done a lot of work in that space, and there are some typical observations. One is that the cost of this technology year on year has significantly dropped. So today adoption is not really challenging both from a cost point of view as well as from the availability of technology point of view. The real challenge that we see, and this is through, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of conversations that we have had with customers ranging from industrial, commercial, residential, that when I compare with, solutions meant for energy monitoring versus solutions meant for water monitoring, energy always comes very high on the agenda simply because the ROI works out pretty well, and there is a significant incentive that that particular user has on saving energy. Whenever we extend that conversation to water, it always becomes a phase 2 deployment. So like we want to do energy first, we want to do HVAC first. Water, let's see, after energy is done, we'll do it in phase 2, and invariably that phase 2 doesn't come. So today, because there is no incentive on adopting this technology, and we have seen this with energy as well, that the moment you discover who is consuming how much, there is a saving. And that saving can be as high as 30%. And those who have adopted technologies for gaining just visibility of water have managed to save that, because it's natural human tendency. We want to plug leakages. But because there is no incentive today, we are not seeing that large scale deployment. In certain areas, in certain municipal corporations, we have seen the deployment when the regulation has mandated. So we have done many projects, for instance, BMC, for large water consumers, they have made it mandatory that you need to give us in real time section-wise consumption reports of water. And it was pretty interesting that this customer who we were working for 6 years, nothing happened. The moment that circular came out, the next day we got an order. And so if we work on such, and it's not really a very expensive thing to deploy, the 30%, 20, 15, whatever savings that you get are very, very easy to achieve just by adopting this solution. So regulations have a pretty important role to play. One positive is we are seeing these regulations come in various areas which, in some way or the other are affecting the environment. So there is a recent regulation that has come in for gensets. So, you need to monitor gensets to figure out what is the emission that is happening. There are regulations around electric mobility. So this is something, if it is done in a concerted manner, the amount of data that will be available, the granular information that will be available will not only incentivize the user to reduce water consumption, but will also give food for thought to the policymakers in terms of what is my capacity that I need to plan, and are there leakages in the distribution system, where are those leakages, So it would be a win-win situation. So that is our observation as far as technology and data acquisition is concerned.
Okay, good morning. I am Dr. Shetek, Director at MIT School of Engineering and Sciences. It's a new topic for me. I heard so many good things in today's conversation. As an academician, just I want to put my experience. 2 labs we have set on our campus with the help of IEEE. One is a affordable agriculture lab, and second is weather station. Once our new generation know about any concept, they immediately accept those concepts. That is the best thing about new generation. And I have seen that the technologies which we have developed with the help of our young minds in last 4 or 5 years, because IEEE supported that lab and our university also supported, we have seen 20% students are inclined towards doing research in the field of affordable agriculture. And as rightly said by sir, energy saving is also very important. And we took that concept, and our whole campus we made with a small device. Whenever anybody goes outside the room, automatically fan and other thing gets off. It's a very simple concept. But because of that, lot of energy saving is happening on the campus. The most important thing is that the water is very prestigious, and as rightly said by many people, that if you see in a day we go 3-4 times to the washrooms, and most of the time when we flush that water, 7 liter water is consumed. I had one experience when I visited to Chandigarh. When I go to the hotel, they asked me from which place you came. So we say from Pune. So they said ki Pune people are using lot of water, and that was the image of our city. And some people may like it, some people may not like it, but it's a real experience that we don't have awareness of utilizing this prestigious thing which is given by the nature to us. So whatever thought process is going on, it's really it's a very important point. And if our young minds get opportunity with people like you, because last time I heard Mukesh sir also, he talked on chlorine water, the water which is coming, drinking water to us, whether it is good or bad, he gave that talk. I still remember when I met him after 2-3 years. So, but we propagated your message to our students many times. So my only request is that this is very important thing. There is a gap, and now we are above 40, above 50. The most important thing is that because of new education policy, these contents can be added to any academia, to any university, and if our next generation get this alert as early as possible, I'm damn sure that the main objective which we have, that can be achieved through young minds only. And for that, I think the technology is one thing. You know that water level meters are there, and that is used in many societies nowadays. So technology is one of the, you can say, domain which can definitely serve this particular thing. There are so many things which are not in our control, but coming together here and discussing on this noble issue is the first appreciable thing for all of us. So I think whatever contribution as an academician which we can do, definitely I will assure you that we will try to take this message to most of the students, and we need your guidance, we need your support. In what way? And one simple thing I will tell you, we just establish a weather station, and through that weather station we are giving messages to all the farmers which are there in and around our campus. And because of that also many farmers got a lot of benefits. Similarly, if we go with this idea, definitely you can say this most important issue which we are discussing can be resolved with the help of these young minds. Thank you very much.
या वर्षीच्या वर्ल्ड वॉटर कॉन्फरन्सला मी स्टॉकहोमला गेलो होतो. त्या ठिकाणी एकंदर 300 सेशन्स झाले. त्याच्यापैकी 80% सेशन्स they were dominated by Western technologies. The whole World Week was completely monopolized by these new technologies. त्या आता पर्कोलेट होता होता सगळ्या देशात येऊन पोहोचणार आहेत आणि त्यामुळे त्या टेक्नॉलॉजीज आपल्या लोकल इंडिजिनस टेक्नॉलॉजीजला मारक ठरणार आहेत. त्यामुळे ते थांबवण्याच्या दृष्टीने आपल्याला लोकल टेक्नॉलॉजीज वाढवण्याच्या दृष्टीने आता जी सजेशन केली त्या कशा वाढवता येतील नवीन स्टुडंट जनरेशनच्या द्वारे हे आपल्याला जास्त लक्ष द्यावं लागणार असं मला वाटतं.
मी बोलू शकतो का? हॅलो, मी बोलू शकतो?
ओके, त्यांना
बोलू शकतो. आपल्याला प्यायचं पाणी जे लागतं ते फक्त 5 लिटर लागतं, बरोबर? माणशी 5 liters of water is required for drinking purposes. आता आपलं जे पुणे कॉर्पोरेशन आहे, आता हे डिसइन्फेक्शन करायचं आपल्याला. We want to disinfect this water. So 5 liters is just required. Our requirement is just 5 liter. 5 liter into 50 lakhs. Okay, that much water you need for drinking. What we are doing here is about 1400 mld. We just chlorinate. What our requirement for potable water is just 25 mld. And what we are doing here, we are just, means this money is just waste. Nobody has given thought on this. Only you have to supply 25 liter, 25 mld water for our Pune. Why such technology we should involve in this? So NCL has done a lot of work to invent on membrane technology, which is and chlorination of water is very hazardous nowadays. It is going to be banned someday. Fortunately, we have introduced some. There are 6 carcinogenic compounds are forming. Not only 6 more in haloacetic acids. Trihalomethane, means a common man can understand. Trihalomethane means chloroform. So such type of carbatates, everything is forming in our drinking water. So we are trying to avoid this chlorination of water, which is very hazardous too, is producing cancer, lot of skin diseases, respiratory problems, and for ladies, all your endocrine systems. इतकं त्याची toxicity आहे. So we have to stop this somewhere. आता foreign मध्ये ozonation is another alternative. But there are so many solar disinfection is also there. So we are finding alternatives for these things. But right now, we have to think why we should chlorinate this 1200 mld per day. Just for requirement is 25 mld. See, it is a waste of money, I am telling you. 20 or 12 to 20 lakhs we are just spending per day. Per day. So this is cost effective also. One has to find and replace the technologies.
So
that's all.
Nowadays we talk about the nexus food, energy, water. So our technology has to be fitted in this particular nexus, which is few. Again, the technology, I remember Professor Arsiwala, who said that there are 4 technologies which are indigenous: trickling filter, oxidation pond, and phytoremediation. आपले आळूचे झाड घराच्या मागे लावतो ते phytoremediation आहे. As rightly pointed out, Dr. Deshwar sir, these all technologies which are Western technology are dumped on Indian continent. So we have to think about, work on the research and development and find out how our traditional technology, because this tropical country is blessed by the sun. So can we use that technology in a better way and efficient way? Regarding the data, we are very fortunate in Pune. We have the 5 universities, more than 10 R&D, CWP, RS, etc. Unfortunately, my student has to run from one place to other place because we don't have a centralized data. Can we work to have all the data centralized? Suppose in a Pune University, SPVU, they have worked that data will come to the central place. CWP, RS data will come to the same place, and that data will be IMD. It's the treasure of the data. the 100 years data they have available. So can we think? Another thing is that, as you rightly pointed out, measurement. We supply the technology is implemented, we don't have any measurement how it works, we don't have data. In fact, I went to the one of the wastewater treatment plant, I asked do you have a data for last 3 years? They don't have a data. So can we have a data measurement, again coming to the central place, can we work on that to have a centralized place to get the all data? That's my suggestion, thank you.
So I think just on the lines of what Aditya said, I think we need a little more policy linkages. Just to give you an example, we spoke a lot about MIDC Kurkum today. It is believed that based on India's green hydrogen policy, one of the industry sectors that is most likely to switch or will have to make that switch is the fine chemical industry belt. And that is for Maharashtra, the MIDC Kurkum belt. This is very akin to the Ankleshwar belt that you have in Gujarat. Maharashtra is the first state to have a green hydrogen policy. If you read the policy, they do offer subsidies on renewable energy, but there is no mention on where the water to do electrolysis for hydrogen production is going to come from. And as you're aware, we are not moving from grey hydrogen to blue and other colors intermediary before moving to green. We are moving directly from grey to green, which means electrolysis is given very, or rather almost exclusive priority for green hydrogen. There is a lot of push to look at biomass-based hydrogen, but I think that will take time. But in policies which already are like where water is a source, not just an energy source, but also an industrial source in case of fine chemical industries, I think there has to be some mention of where that water is going to come from, and there has to be provisions made for water as a raw material to produce that type of energy. So if creating new policies for this is difficult, we should look at how existing policies can, where water is actually a source, can actually be emphasized more clearly.
Yeah, please go ahead. Just a small point regarding we have underlined very well the importance of central database or having common data place so that we can do a lot of research on that. Now, I just want to highlight the importance of remote sensing technology as a data acquisition system also. So most of the data we talked about is spread over quite a large area. It's geospatially distributed data. And if you consider advanced technologies like synthetic aperture radar or hyperspectral data, nowadays it will be available to everybody who can do a research on that very soon. Earlier hyperspectral data and synthetic aperture radar was not easily available, but now it is available it is in public domain, so we can utilize it effectively for many parameters we talked about for measuring, especially for example demarcation of water bodies. Very simple case for many remote sensing techniques. In addition to that, we talked about aquifer recharge and all these things. Now remote sensing with its all abilities is very good in identifying resource potential or potential for a particular activity. Aquifer recharge is one of such case. Another cases we discussed was about leakage. So there are importance of identifying leakages also underlined, right? So now there also predictive assessment or even after leakage also can be very well done using remote sensing. Even if it is underground and if it is in large sufficient quantity, moisture changes can be easily captured by a synthetic aperture radar. And hyperspectral data is very useful for protecting large water bodies from pollution, at least in detection. They will not do something for treat it, but identifying pollution of a particular type, and even it can be attributed to some source also. For example, we know that this chemical comes from some industry. Then if it is coming into water body, hyperspectral data can detect it, and then we can attribute to particular pollutant industry also. So, so remote sensing overall I feel is very critical in many use cases we talked about. Land use land cover changes because it changes impervious increase of impervious or it changes permeability also. It changes how much water and how it will reach. It changes flood hydrograph essentially. So that's the one I wanted to say. Yeah.
So like we have at a central level mission life program. Under that we have green credit program, and the way we have done sustainathon, TCS done earlier actually. In a similar way, on that particular base, if we have a sustainathon on a waterathon, whatever you name it, it will help a lot as a credit point also. And again, nature-based solution could be used, like students should use our nature-based solution and all our old wisdoms, whatever tradition we have, and if they can give solution of whatever 5 pointers we have mentioned for our today's roundtable. I think even this parallelly could be helpful for our program, whatever we are doing. So this is what I wanted to share.
Two quick tech ideas. I have short, quick. One is, can we build an app to match the circularity for the people who are producing water and people who want water? That could be a quick app. It could be a competition from a school or something. And
no, it's precisely that was discussed. So it could be treated as an assignment problem.
Huh.
But for that, actually, a lot of GIS database would be required because we need to know the distance and all these things so that we can calculate the notional cost of matching it. Yeah.
The story, success stories. Today we have success stories which come one off in Better India and things like that. How could we technology help replicate those success stories?
Under our concept that should there be a water plan, we came up as one deliverable should be like a decision support or a decision response system for the local organizations. And in a short study which we are trying to do with PCMC, we are trying to see the data dependencies of different departments. So it started with as a very simple study where what kind of water data each department under the municipal corporation looks at. First, do they look at it? And if not, if yes, how do they look at it? Other than water supply, drainage department and all. And we came to know that there are departments which do look at this water data. It falls in sync because now they are coming up with that treated water should be used up by construction departments for construction. So like PMC came with an app that okay, this much of treated water is available. So now builders have to take that through tankers or whatever is the mechanism. And we are trying to build a model here again with TCS to see if this decision support system can be built as a pilot for one corporation with help of students as well, where you try to feed in whatever data exists. We'll also know what are the data gaps, but whatever exists, can we build up this support system? We got this bit of an idea from Vijayawada model, where in Vijayawada the collector himself wanted this decision support system, and they did it in collaboration with IIT Madras, where a lot of water data was fed into the so-called platform or whatever you call it, and they did some projections that by 2030 this much will be the population, this much will be the wastewater which will be generated, what will happen to that. The only caveat here was that the model became too complex for the local bodies to handle as well. So we were trying to see if it can be much more simplified, where a simple because you don't need to take day-to-day decisions in water. At a corporation level, it's done. They know how much they're going to do for this year, so on and so forth. But with the newer things of reuse of waters, demand for treated waters and also, we were trying to see if we can build a similar platform. And yesterday, Deena shared a very nice app which was made by WOTR, that's Water Organization, and they did it for farmers, where we know that farmers have been using the water budget and all much before apps, much before weather data came into picture. So they know how much of water they'll need for what crop, how will be their pattern and all. So this was a very interesting small video which we got yesterday, that how all of these things are budgeted at a village level, and then how do they take decisions with respect to what is going to happen for this year. It's going to be a drought year, how much of land they will be using for irrigation, for agriculture, should they reduce it, so on and so forth.
So last point, fortunately Pune Municipal Corporation has taken my advice and they brought one booklet how to reduce this our waste water contamination with chemicals. Okay? You got. So for your information, you throw 40 grams of chemicals per day per person in our rivers. So there are natural ways how you can replace your all domestic requirements in form of detergents, all means like soap, shampoo, toothpaste, everything. They all contain all these chemicals which are not biodegradable. So this cost is going up like anything, and At the end, you are having all solid waste contaminated with all these toxic things. So fortunately, corporation has realized these things and they will go accordingly. Even we are asking them to replace this chlorination. So something will be in on our this thing. Hopefully they will do it. Okay. Thank you very much.
So just very last 30 seconds. So the Ministry of Jal Shakti, they have the National Water Informatics Center, and under that they have a program called WARIMS, that is Water and Allied Resources Information Management System, which is a digital platform for capturing all the data and help as a decision support system. Now, being a state subject, constitutionally a state subject, they have also asked to create a state water informatics center, SWICs, for each state. Unfortunately, that is not happening. That is the same kind of platform that probably what you are mentioning, and they have already have the macro level data with ISRO and everyone, wherein you plug in. So the municipal corporations are required to feed in this data into SWIC platform, ORM's platform at SWIC, and then that can be used. But this is not functional, and probably we can also look at how to make this functional through our network.
So Siddharth, is there dedicated funding for states to set this up?
Is this? Okay, I was not aware of that.
Okay.
Maybe some of the GIS maps will be sourced from MRSAT.
Yeah.
All the maps available at the display.
But it's a pain to get anything out of MRSAT.
MRSAT and SY data we have been using.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about chlorination of water and the enormous amount of wastage in that. Now we hear about Jamshedpur managed by the Tatas, where you can drink water off the taps. This is what one reads and one hears. Now why and how and when we have this session on science and technology and water management. So how and when will our cities and say a city like Pune be able to reach at that point? The second thing is in all our homes we have these water filters, UV driven water filters, and there is such enormous wastage of water in purifying water for drinking. So this also needs to be addressed, and some awareness needs to be created of what is happening.
Thank you for all your inputs. I'll just quickly summarize on this particular point. So obviously there is a great amount of optimism about technology, and I think as Shetty sir and some of you all brought out the point that the young minds need to be given these problems, given these challenges, that they can be guided and they can provide a platform to experiment and innovate. Some very good pointers around some solutions like OMSAT is what you mentioned. There is a lot of deep tech solutions which are already available. There was a lot of focus brought out at least twice or thrice on traditional wisdom and areas around that and how we can actually focus on that. There was a lot of discussion around data and the visibility of granular data for various decision making. One of the things which was mentioned again and again was around regulation and how regulations can play a role in people adopting these technologies. And given that it's not necessarily going to be an economic ROI for the businesses, they may actually put it on lower priority, but there needs to be some incentives. We did discuss about some of the industry-based solutions, especially around fine chemical industry and green hydrogen policy, and how we can augment some of the things. Remote sensing and other areas came up as a good topic for discussion. This is learning from other locations was I think it's resonated across everybody's data points. And then Siddharth also shared about things which are happening at a national level on water informatics. So again, I think a good amount of opportunities. My recommendation would be that if we can take it up at college levels, especially around engineering colleges, GIP is doing a lot of data collection. If there is collaboration, and just like we had created affordable agriculture labs, if there are an approach which we can take up maybe through an MCCI education committee, and then see if they can create certain things, at least the problem can be tabled, and there are experts who can provide those inputs. So I think overall this has been a very productive set of discussions. Obviously, we had limited the time, so we just couldn't do justice to each of the topics. But it is very worthwhile of all of you to provide those inputs to the each of the discussion points. My recommendation would be that I'm sure that there would be people who wouldn't be able to contribute in this discussion, but if you have any thoughts, you have got the mails from Geeta. Ensure that you can write, summarize some of the points and send a mail, so that we have a team that is going to work on the output which has come out of this discussion. And definitely one of the things which I came across was, this is a very valuable piece of information. There's a good amount of expertise, but it is still incomplete. So I would request each one of you who have not provided your profile, and profile in the context of this particular problem, would be useful to elaborate and create an opportunity for people to reach out and collaborate based on your experiences. Pete sir, I would request you to
Dina,
give
one suggestion I had. I think it might be worthwhile spending 2-3 minutes to take inputs on whether we should include any other additional question in our research.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'll just have Pete sir give any views that he may have, because he's been listening all the time. So
2-3 minutes. I came here to listen to people basically, so I got a lot of stuff. I think maybe because I'm an economist, I think the cost pricing value thing is central. It is trackable, and that could be a very important research project. The two things I did not hear, one was water markets, the second was cross subsidy. The two things that I heard which were not very useful to me is noble, the word noble, nature, and public good. I've got 2 minutes, so I don't want to. About the data observatory, the PIC is already working on that with certain verticals. Currently, we are focusing on mobility, but if we get enough input from Gurudas, we will be able to do this. And I think if we tackle the cost pricing and value thing, most of the other things will fall in place, because I'm not very sanguine about short-term effects of nudges and so on. They are very temporary and small effects, and behavioral changes, etc. That's again a personal view. The governance policy thing is very important, but we need to look at the traverse problem. That is, when it has to be implemented, it doesn't start from a clean slate, as all of us know. So how do you work out implementable policies is an important research issue, and that can be taken up. The thing that Aditya was talking about in particular, about the energy and water, is very, very important, again linked to costing and so on, because you mentioned in the passing that the ROI can't be there in water. I have a different opinion. There can be an ROI on water. We mess it up by talking about it as a natural thing and a national resource and stuff like that, but it is an economic good. Sir mentioned, I think Saraf sir mentioned that we have a mandate for 45 or 55 liters or whatever. Price it at 0. But why do you not price economically properly? And there are at least 5 different economic dimensions to measuring this. I am not a great researcher in this area, but I was an advisor to Maharashtra Water Resources Authority. They made me write a first principles approach. Unfortunately, they couldn't provide me with data. They wanted to know, do the total cost pricing, not life cycle as you would like, but just total cost pricing. The framework is there. I think if we can do that, just putting it there would go towards maybe making some people aware, like we do in our educational institutions nowadays. In Mumbai, at least, we do this, which is, we put on the notice board what is the actual cost of providing education to you. And then it's fine. We charge you only 2,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees, whatever. But actually, the cost of this is 25,000. It has allowed for certain people to come and give donations to the college, those who can afford, because the subsidies are not targeted, right? Therefore, that is the one thing. I've taken my 2-3 minutes, but very interesting learning for me, and I think from PIC and GIP point of view, we can, and PKC as friends, they're friends. I'm not involved with PKC. I'm involved with GIP and Gurdas's center to some extent, and PIC fundamentally. So there are at least 2 or 3 sharply defined research projects that can come up, and we should do that. Thank you.
Should we conclude? Yeah. So thank you again. I think we'll have lunch outside, served outside. But again, as I said, feel free to share any further inputs over email, any other points as you may feel important in this context.